Chapter 345. After a strong wave of spirit energy, Chu Tian had smoothly come out. In this short closed-door cultivation, not only had he recovered from his injuries, he had also stepped into the seventh awakened soul layer. This filled Miracle Commerce with energy and swept away everyone's worries. It was all thanks to the immortal medicine little Princess Vivian sent. Since Chu Tian was fine, the little princess was prepared to go back. After all, she had left home for several days and the elven elders were searching for her, so they must be going crazy with worry. If they chased her here, Chu Tian and the small southern summer country's troubles would be unavoidable. Vivian decided to go back and admit her wrongs. At worst she would be locked up for a while, but as long as the storm passed, she could still come to southern Xia to play with Chu Tian and Yingying. Vivian had given her the immortal medicine and Chu Tian had given her a spatial cultivation technique, so they were basically even. So, Chu Tian did not make her stay, which made little Princess Vivian feel a bit disappointed. She said her goodbyes with a depressed expression. Remember to come see me in the Forest of Chaos when you have time, I'll be very bored in the tribe. Princess, you don't need to be in a rush to leave. I've carefully prepared a gift for you, can you wait a bit? Is that so? Many thanks big sister Meng Qinggu. Little Princess Vivian really liked Miracle Commerce's things, especially the cameras, magnetic sound devices, and video players. If she could bring a bunch of them back, she wouldn't be bored even if she was locked up. Meng Qinggu gave a soft cough before leaving. Chu Tian came back to his senses. The young miss had something to say. He immediately followed Meng Qinggu to the back hall. What is this? Take a look at this first. Meng Qinggu took out the map she had drawn from Princess Vivian's description. She first introduced the situation of the Forest of Chaos and then explained her thoughts. The true threat we are facing right now is not the Warhound's kingdom, but rather the Eagle Burial Kingdom behind them. It wasn't hard to defeat the Warhound's kingdom, but it wasn't easy to deal with the Eagle Burial Kingdom. Miracle Commerce's land was barren and couldn't expand and the north was covered by the Eagle Burial Kingdom, so the only way to break through was the south. The overall strength of the Forest of Chaos is not inferior to an empire. Those peak forest cities, mountain cities, and underground cities are not weaker than the Eagle Burial Warring Kingdom, only the hundreds of races are divided and the situation is chaotic, so the powers are not evenly distributed. Although the terrain is primitive, the fierce beasts, and the various powers are chaotic, it is also because of this that it is a good place to fish in troubled waters. I understand what eldest miss means. The Forest of Chaos is a fertile land. Miracle Commerce has great potential in this area, but we haven't thought of a way to get involved yet. I think we should go through Vivian and find a way to get in touch with the elves. The south might become a fertile land for Miracle Commerce and Chu Tian's group to grow stronger. However, everything was difficult at the beginning. The Forest of Chaos was simply too powerful. Not to mention the Dragon Lord, the Elven King, or the Titans, any small or medium-sized faction would be able to wipe them out. How to safely enter the Forest of Chaos was of the utmost importance. The best way was to form an alliance with a local tribe. This could provide protection in the beginning and also help Miracle Commerce develop. The little elf sitting outside, wasn't she just a local? Meng Qinggu had yet to think of a way to establish a cooperative relationship. After all, the elves were very antisocial and had overwhelming power. If she were to make contact with them rashly, not only would she fail to achieve her goal, she might even bring disaster upon herself. Understood, leave it to me. When Chu Tian returned to the living room, Meng Yingying was sending off little Princess Vivian. The two of them had a look of reluctance because after today, who knew when they would meet again? Chu Tian walked in front of Vivian and said, I have a suggestion. How about you don't go back and just join Miracle Commerce? Meng Qinggu almost spat out blood. What kind of idea was this? Did he not know the consequences of doing this? If they left Vivian in Central State and let her join Miracle Commerce, the elves would definitely fly into a rage. They would insist that it was Chu Tian who kidnapped the princess and it would be strange if they didn't cripple Miracle Commerce at that time. I agree. I also think the same. Vivian did not even have time to speak before Meng Yingying expressed her strong support. You will definitely be punished if you go back, so why don't you stay with us? But, Vivian was very excited. She had not played enough these past few days and she would most likely be locked up for a long time when she returned to the tribe. If she could choose, of course she wanted to stay. However, Vivian was not stupid. If she went back on her own initiative, at most she would be punished for violating the tribe's rules. However, if she was left behind by a human, then the situation would be completely different. Wouldn't that implicate Chu Tian and the others? Chu Tian said to Vivian, "Do you like miracle commerce? Do you want the elves to become a beneficiary and participant of miracle commerce?" "Of course I like it, this is a great cause." Vivian's words were not false at all. After touring around Central State these past few days, she had a deep understanding of miracle commerce's potential. I feel that miracle commerce's future will not be normal. You're right. Even in a small and poor country, miracle commerce only took half a year to develop to this stage, but our dream is not to be content with a single person. Then what is it? We want to change this world and even change this era, making the continent more wonderful because of us, making everyone's lifestyle change. We want to personally create a miracle dynasty. Vivian had a look of worship on her face. This was great, this was the Chu Tian she admired. Southern Xia is too barren. If we can enter a place like the Forest of Chaos one day, I think miracle commerce will have great achievements. When Chu Tian said this, he suddenly revealed a compassionate appearance. I've heard that there are over 100 races living in the Forest of Chaos, killing each other. There is no order or law, with bandits, murderers, and human traffickers everywhere. There should be a power that can end this chaotic situation and pacify this chaotic forest. Miracle Commerce is willing to help us and use the Forest of Chaos as the first step to realizing our dreams. I wonder if the elves are willing to help. Vivian's body trembled. What? Miracle Commerce wanted to go to the Forest of Chaos. The Forest of Chaos was Vivian's hometown, how could she not be willing? Vivian anxiously jumped up. Each elf hopes to change the situation of the forest, but we can't do it with just our strength. Then don't hesitate, let's work together now. With Miracle Commerce's wisdom and the elf strength, sweeping the entire Forest of Chaos will not be a problem. Chu Tian patted Vivian's shoulder. As for the elves, there is no need to worry. I believe that in the near future, the Forest of Chaos will become peaceful and orderly and the elves will become an important force. The elven elders are very rigid, I'm afraid you will. Rigid? Chu Tian specialize in dealing with rigid people, there is no matter that I can't handle. Relax and stay here for a few more days. After the matter in Southern Xia is over, I'll accompany you to the Forest of Chaos to convince them and let the elves become Miracle Commerce's allies. Really? Please look into my sincere eyes. Do I look like a liar? Meng Yingying seized this chance to say, you might not understand this fellow, but as long as he dares say something, there is nothing he can't do. No matter how difficult it is, you can be assured. Vivian was more and more moved. She was very clear about Chu Tian's deeds, so she knew that this person was good at creating miracles. Perhaps he could really convince them. Alright, then I'll stay here for a few more days. Meng Yingying gave a happy shout, great. Vivian's face was also filled with a smile. She liked this creative place from the bottom of her heart. The elven forest was filled with gardening, painting, and carving. That kind of life was too boring and she was bored for a day, not to mention a lifetime. People lived in this world, so they needed to do something. Meng Qinggu didn't know what Chu Tian was thinking, but with their tacit understanding, as long as it was Chu Tian's decision, Meng Qinggu would not easily question it. Not to mention that Vivian was very strong. If she could stay in Central State City, it would at least give Central State City a strong protection. Princess Vivian has become a member of the company, so we should give her a position. With Vivian's status, we can't just casually ignore her. What position does the young miss think we should give her? There was no lack of people in charge of the various departments, so what position could they give Vivian? Meng Qingwu's heart skipped a beat. Since Miracle Commerce is prepared to expand into the Forest of Chaos, we should create an external development manager. Their position will be the same as the branch chairman. What do you think? Chu Tian nodded. All right, that's it. Good. 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 Meng Yingying revealed a smile. We welcome the princess to Miracle Commerce. Vivian gave a few silly laughs. She had heard Meng Yingying talk about Chu Tian recently, so she was very envious of Meng Yingying who could work beside Chu Tian. It would be great if she could work with Chu Tian, but she never thought that her wish would come true this quickly. What attracted Vivian the most was that Miracle Commerce was going to the Forest of Chaos. Vivian thought of going with Miracle Commerce to the Forest of Chaos and showing off her skills in the Forest of Chaos. Her blood was boiling. What should I do now? No rush, no rush. You don't need to do anything right now, I'll teach you a few things. If Chu Tian wanted to convince the old fellows of the Elven tribe, he had to take out something that would make them speechless. During this time, you just need to practice the void escaping well. Yes, Chairman. The little princess had finally settled down. Chu Tian used the remaining 2/3 of the immortal herbs, and with a bunch of sacred herbs that could increase one's cultivation base, he refined another 10 pills. Although they were refined from incomplete immortal herbs and dregs, their medicinal strength was not inferior to a top-grade sacred pill, and their effects were even better. Chu Tian gave them to the people beside him. In the end, the young Miss, Yingying, Feng Kaidai, Yun Yao, and the others all easily reached the 6th awakened soul layer. Nangong Yun reached the peak 6th awakened soul layer, and breaking through to the 7th awakened soul layer was just around the corner. Although Chen Bingyu did not break through, her cultivation had increased a bit. What surprised Chu Tian the most was that after Dongfang Haoren took the pill, his cultivation had smoothly reached the peak 9th awakened soul layer. His strength had already reached the level of the Southern Summer Marquis, so it seemed like he was a person with great potential. The entire Miracle Commerce's strength had increased by a level. All aspects of the war preparations had been completed, and they were just waiting for the warhounds to arrive. Chapter 346. The Southern Summer Imperial City was filled with the warhounds' banners. The Imperial City had fallen and all resistance had been killed. The Imperial City had been in chaos for several days, and a quarter of the 7-8 million people had died in battle. The rest had chosen to surrender and pledge their loyalty. The warhounds' army had looted and burned for several days. The wealth and resources accumulated by the families in Imperial City over 100 years had all become the Fang King's spoils of war. The fierce demon wolf cavalry had taken over the Imperial region and several dozen cities in Sang State. Now there were over 40 million Southern Xia citizens that had become the warhounds' vassals. Wang Tianlong was in high spirits. This was because after the Fang King took over the Imperial region, he immediately made Wang Tianlong the new king. Through Wang Tianlong's human identity, it was much easier to rule the Southern Xia citizens than the Fang King himself. After all, these humans had lived on this land for generations and had a deep hatred for the northern spirit beasts, so it was not easy to directly rule them. So what if he was a subordinate king? It was not something a marquis could compare to. Wang Tianlong got what he wanted. Now, his biggest wish was to take back all the remaining lands that were struggling at death's door. Other than that, there was another matter that was stuck in Wang Tianlong's throat. Chu Tian. He didn't know why, but he felt that as long as Chu Tian didn't die, he couldn't sleep well. When the scouts brought back news, Chu Tian had indeed escaped to Central State and had even pushed Dongfang Gan onto the throne, preparing to fight against the Great Summer Country. Wang Tianlong was so angry that he smashed a cup. He immediately notified Nangong Ling, who was now a ruler, and the two of them quickly entered the royal palace, preparing to report to the Fang King. The Fang King was currently receiving the Eagle Burial Kingdom's envoy. This Eagle Burial envoy was covered in a black robe, only revealing a pair of sharp eyes. Even with the Fang King's incomparably respected status, he still had to show some respect to this person. The Eagle Burial Envoy first praised the Fang King. "Your Highness has ruled the warhounds and quickly conquered southern summer. The king has given you high praise and will properly reward you after the battle. I hope your Highness will continue to expand south, allowing the Eagle Burial Kingdom's southern territory to reach the Forest of Chaos." With one large and one small kingdom joining in, the Eagle Burial Kingdom's influence will increase by another step. The king might even become an emperor in 100 years. The Fang King didn't care about these questions, only asking, "Have Eagle Burial's reinforcements arrived?" His Highness has requested 100,000 air reinforcements, but the Eagle Burial Kingdom is fighting all over and all the battlefronts are very shocked. The southern summer imperial city has already been broken and there are only a few people left to resist, but against the people who are good at fighting, is there a need to send 100,000 reinforcements? Although the Vulture Cavalry is not the trump card of the Eagle Burial Kingdom, it is still a very precious air force. We can only support 20,000 cavalry at most. This is already our limit. Your Highness, please don't make this difficult. The Fang King was a bit unhappy. Although southern Xia can't even withstand a single blow, the difference in terrain between the north and south of southern Xia is huge. My demon wolf riders can't travel thousands of miles over mountains and rivers. If we want to end this battle quickly, we'll need a large aerial force. Your Highness is too cautious. The Eagle Burial Envoy disagreed. Even if the Demon Wolf Cavalry cannot fight, you still have several 100,000 soldiers from the Warhound Plains and 10,000 Vulture Cavalry. Adding in the 20,000 Vulture Cavalry, even if you don't use any tactics, you can still break through a few normal southern summer cities. The Fang King gave a snort. Your Highness wanting to end this battle quickly isn't wrong, but you have to consider the overall situation of the kingdom. For a southern summer that can't rise again, you don't need to invest too much of the Eagle Burial Kingdom's battle strength. The Eagle Burial Envoy said this and then added, "You don't need to be too anxious. The king has given us 3 months of time, so no matter how hard we humans defend, 3 months is more than enough." The Eagle Burial Envoy left the palace after giving his orders. His sharp eyes swept over Wang Tianlong and Nangong Ling, revealing a look of ridicule and disdain. Were these lowly humans worthy of being the Eagle Burial Kingdom's opponents? This Highness really didn't know what was good for him. 100,000 Vulture Cavalry. Wasn't this just nonsense? It was hard for a large kingdom to use a 100,000 aerial army. Now that they were dealing with a small country and a dying one at that, he actually asked for 100,000 reinforcements. If it wasn't for unifying the warhounds and winning 2 battles, the king would give him a bit of face. Otherwise, even 20,000 could forget about it. The Fang King softly asked, "Have you investigated the matter I asked you to investigate?" Nangong Ling quickly cupped his hands and said, "We've investigated the strange weapons used by the southern summer defenders. These are special weapons manufactured in a secret factory near Imperial City." The Fang King's eyes flashed with a bright glow. It really is a mass-produced weapon. Such a weak small country actually has such a sharp new weapon. Have you found the blueprints or production staff? Also, I've heard that the southern Xia humans have invented something that can communicate over 1,000 miles and broadcast sound. Have you found any of this technology yet? We asked the Fang King to punish us. Nangong Yun said in a terrified voice, "These new technologies haven't been around for long and they are all in the hands of Miracle Commerce. All the related equipment in the city has been destroyed and the secret factory outside the city has been heavily damaged, so we can't find anything of value for now." Waste. The Fang King slapped Nangong Ling into the wall. Nangong Ling did not dare resist and could only kowtow to accept his punishment. "Fang King, please calm your anger." Wang Tianlong respectfully bowed down. "I've received news that Chu Tian's group has escaped to the south and is currently in Central State. As long as we capture him, everything will be in our hands." In the Imperial City battle, the fierce firepower of the Source Energy submachine guns and the shocking might of the Source Energy bombs had left a deep impression on the Fang King. The Fang King thought it was a secret treasure at first, but who would have thought that after investigating it, it was actually a mass-produced weapon? This made the Fang King very excited. If he could obtain this kind of equipment, the Eagle Burial Kingdom's strength would increase by several times. It would be too easy for them to become an emperor. We've searched the merchant caravans and stored ships, so we've already gathered enough. Wang Tianlong knelt down on one knee. Please give the order. As long as Central State falls, Southern Xia's last resistance will collapse. At that time, the 200 million Southern Xia citizens will all become subjects of the Warhound's kingdom, forever farming and producing for the Fang King. The Fang King was a bit hesitant. Today's position was not obtained through bravery. The Fang King was not only a peak expert, he was also a clear-headed commander. He did not let two large victories go to his head, rather he calmly analyzed the situation. There was no doubt that the remaining Southern Xia army could not even stop the Warhounds, not to mention the Eagle Burial Kingdom army. But now they were faced with two variables. The first was the terrain variable. The second was the unexpected variable. The Warhounds would have to pass through the Four States Lake if they continued south, but the Warhounds were not good at fighting in the water. Moreover, the ships they stole from the Southern Summer merchants and the old warships in the warehouse could not compare to Southern Xia's warships. If they fought on the Four States Lake, the Warhounds might not have an advantage. Other than that, did Southern Xia still have that kind of powerful weapon in storage? Once this weapon was used in a water battle, it would have an even stronger killing effect. This was something they had to guard against. Wang Tianlong was filled with doubt. Whether it is our numbers or strength, we have an overwhelming advantage. What is the Fang King worried about? All right. The Fang King made his decision. Immediately pass down my orders. The Demon Wolf Cavalry will stay behind and the rest of the army will prepare to head south. Understood. Wang Tianlong revealed a look of joy and immediately asked, then what is the strategy? The Fang King had already thought of a strategy. You will lead 600,000 warhounds to head south. The fleet cannot be concentrated and will be split into 5 fleets of 100,000 people. They will follow different routes and land in different places in Central State. This is, Southern Xia's army is weaker than our army, so their only chance of victory is to defeat us on the water. However, their army is not as large as ours and we will scatter to land, making it difficult for them. At most we can attack 1 or 2 places and most of the army will land. Wang Tianlong's eyes lit up. Splitting the army to land is one of the strategies. It is a strong attack. The Fang King continued to say, I will lead 30,000 vulture cavalry and the various tribe chiefs from Tsang State. We will pass through the mountains to the north of Central State and launch a surprise attack on Central State City. A surprise attack and a strong attack. How could Central State City stop them? The Southern Summer Country had lost 2 battles, but they did not lose unjustly. The Fang King was an experienced commander, his strategies were always impeccable. At least from Wang Tianlong's point of view, Central State City would definitely die in this battle. The battle strength of the Central State Army could be ignored. The Southern Summer Cavalry had 300,000, but their overall strength could not compare to the Warhounds, so they had no chance of winning in a head-on clash. As long as the Warhounds landed, they would be able to break through Central State with a strong attack. The Warhounds would split into 5 groups and even if Central State sent out all their forces to intercept them on the water, the Warhounds were not good at fighting on the water and their ships were old, so they could only intercept 1 or 2 groups at most. The rest of the troops would be able to surround Central State City. This was already very hard to break. Not to mention that in the Fang King's strategy, there was a hidden surprise attack. He would personally lead the air force from the north, crossing over the mountains to launch a surprise attack on Central State. No matter how good the calm martial ruler's tactics were, if he wanted to intercept the 600,000 Warhounds army, it was impossible for him to not send out all his forces. But once he sent out all his forces, Central State City would be very empty. Under the surprise attack of 30,000 aerial troops, Central State City would definitely fall. If Central State City fell, no matter how beautiful the battle on the Four States Lake was, it would be meaningless. The fall of Central State was already an inevitable result. The Fang King was truly worthy of being the Eagle Burial Empire's king. He could think of such a detailed and ruthless plan in such a short period of time. Wang Tianlong and Nan Gongling's confidence increased. Although Dong Fanggan's military talent did not lose to the Fang kings, in a situation where both sides were at the same level, pure strength was the deciding factor. The Fang king watched the two of them leave. He did not know why, but he had a vague premonition that this battle would not be easy. Chapter 347. The warhounds could attack at any time. Central State's development could not be slow. Meng Qinggu had been observing the data from all sides, and she had to admit that war was the strongest catalyst for the development of a civilization. With the threat of the warhounds' kingdom, the entire Central State was united. In just a short half a month, not only had everyone's cultivation base increased by a level, the Central State Yun sect had also continued to show results, and the industry had developed by leaps and bounds. With all the resources from all sides working together, the production efficiency had increased by around 3 times. Not bad, very not bad. With this speed, if the warhounds gave them another 10-15 days, Central State would be impregnable and the warhounds' army would not be able to break through this place easily. Now Meng Qingwu's biggest headache was not the warhounds' kingdom in the north. Miracle Commerce's new strategy had already been decided. The Forest of Chaos would become the place where Miracle Commerce would truly rise, but how to enter this area was the #1 problem for Miracle Commerce. Chu Tian's method was too risky. The elves were a race with a strong sense of vigilance and did not trust outsiders easily, so they were closed off. Meng Qinggu thought that if they wanted to gain the elves' trust and support, they had to slowly eliminate the elves' suspicions and let them recognize Miracle Commerce and accept them. Chu Tian directly pulled Princess Vivian into his group, not leaving any room for negotiation. Did he consider Vivian's identity? Did he really consider the feelings of the elves' conservative faction? This would not be able to win the elves over as an ally, rather it would cause the elves to be hostile towards them. What were they busy with at this time? Meng Qinggu took out the communication device to contact Yingying. In the end, she found out that Yingying was with Chu Tian and Vivian, currently in the Yun sect. What were they doing in the Yun sect? Meng Qinggu curiously went over to see what was going on. Chu Tian had opened a special laboratory for Vivian and was currently teaching the little princess how to use this super modern laboratory. This is the spatial laboratory that the Yun sect has specially prepared for Vivian. I'll leave it to you to manage after tonight. When Chu Tian said this, his tone suddenly changed. In order to facilitate your work, I'll let eldest miss and Yingying be responsible for assisting you. Vivian's face was full of surprise as she touched around in the laboratory. There were many new things inside, things that could never be seen in the elven tribe. Vivian had just been accepted into Miracle Commerce by Chu Tian, and she already had her own laboratory so quickly. Her sense of identity became even stronger. Ah, what did you say? Vivian was stunned. How can that be? Yingying and big sister Qinggu are the founders of Miracle Commerce and I am just a newcomer. Vivian was used to calling Meng Qinggu sister. Although she was old enough to be Meng Qingwu's grandmother. Meng Qinggu also gave a bitter smile. Those who are capable come first, little princess doesn't need to be modest. But. Vivian scratched her head in a bit of embarrassment as her white cheeks turned red. Although I've lived for 14 elven years, I can't even compare to Yingying in terms of knowledge. Not to mention managing a laboratory, I'm afraid I can't even be a normal researcher. This was definitely the truth. Meng Yingying had copied Meng Qingwu's heavenly book Source Spirit for a long time to increase her learning ability, so her knowledge would not lose to a normal Yun sect scholar. On the other hand, Vivian was several times older than Yingying, but she had lived in the elven environment since she was young, so how could she have the mind to study? Vivian's strength could not compare to anyone, but her knowledge was far from it. Meng Qinggu felt it was strange. Little Princess Vivian was not good at science, so why did she prepare a laboratory? What was Chu Tian thinking? Vivian was very embarrassed. How about this laboratory? We don't need it for now. My cultivation base is not bad, so if you want to fight, I might be able to help. Let's say it like this. Even if you invite the most knowledgeable old scholar of your elven race, there wouldn't be much of a difference in my eyes. Moreover, you have a special potential that normal people don't have. Chu Tian encouraged Vivian, you are unique, I believe that you can do things that other people can't do. Vivian's heart was instantly moved to the point of bursting. She was synonymous with trouble in the elven tribe, and even she had given up on herself. She never thought that there would be someone who appreciated her this much, not to mention that this person was her most respected idol. What special potential do I have? Your innate spatial energy. The thing that Chu Tian wanted to teach Vivian was actually the knowledge of spatial energy. This was a hard-to-form knowledge in 20,000 years. Whether it was a world-famous scholar or a normal person like Vivian, there was no difference. In order to let you understand your own potential, I'll give you a small task first. Chu Tian gave a set of very complicated blueprints to Vivian. This is the third-level spatial source energy array's blueprint. Your first task is to complete the array, and you will naturally understand my meaning at that time. Spatial source energy array. The few of them were shocked. They had heard of fire source energy arrays, wind source energy arrays, and ice source energy arrays. As for spatial source energy arrays, they had never heard of them before. It could even be called a fantasy. Spatial energy was recognized as the hardest attribute to control. Wanting to use a source energy array to create spatial energy, was this really possible? Vivian held the complicated blueprints and said, what kind of array is this? Chu Tian gave Vivian an encouraging look, don't ask too many questions, just give it a try. No matter how bad one's knowledge was, they still had the basic ability to draw a source energy array. Chu Tian had already given a detailed blueprint, and Vivian just needed to draw the array according to the blueprint. With her true spirit realm and mind's lamp divine sense, this was not a hard thing to do. This source energy array was clearly not normal. The materials Chu Tian had prepared were all precious level 3 materials. Other than that, he had used 4 giant source energy batteries to form a system to replenish the energy of this source energy array. I'm going to start. Vivian's little face tightened. This was her first time showing her strength. She couldn't drop the ball at this critical moment. She released her divine sense. This divine sense was not weaker than Chu Tian's, it was even a bit stronger than Chu Tian's. After scanning the blueprint once, every detail was recorded in her mind. Rise! The crystal stone pen was raised. Vivian directly used her divine sense to control it, drawing it on a piece of stone specially used to hold source energy arrays. After around 30 minutes, a complex and complete space source energy array was formed. When Meng Qinggu saw the source energy array, it was hard for her to hide the shock in her heart. Meng Qinggu was not a simple woman, she could be considered half a disciple of Chu Tian. Of the current technology of miracle commerce, the only one who had a complete grasp of it was Meng Qinggu. Meng Qinggu's strong learning ability and heavenly book memory allowed her to surpass top scholars like Gu Qianqiu and Yun Tianhe in a short period of time. This space source energy array was something she had never heard of before. It wasn't like Meng Qinggu had never seen a level 3 array before, but she had never seen one this complex. All the components and structures were very unique. If this array was seen by those old things, they would go crazy from excitement. Vivian wiped her sweat and said with a face filled with amazement, this is the most complex source energy array I have ever seen, but what use does it have? Don't be anxious. Chu Tian said to Meng Yingying on the side, Yingying, help me turn on the energy pillars. All right. Meng Yingying deftly activated the switch on the magic energy battery. The 4 energy pillars simultaneously released a powerful energy. After the complex spatial array was activated, it instantly transformed into an incredible amount of energy. The violent energy wave interfered with the spatial fluctuations. When the spatial distortion became more and more intense, it actually formed a black hole-like hole. Meng Qinggu and Meng Yingying couldn't feel it, but Vivian could clearly feel it. This black hole is a stable space, similar to the storage space in storage equipment. God, it's too big, it's at least 10 feet wide. What did you say? Meng Qingwu's eyes almost popped out. This is a storage space. Vivian's face filled with excitement as she nodded. That's right, I understand. This source energy array's use is to create a stable space. I have never seen such a mysterious source energy array before. It can actually create a stable space. Once this space is formed, it is no different from a storage equipment. How expensive was a storage equipment? It could simply be considered priceless. There weren't many storage equipment in all of southern Xia. The reason why storage equipment was so precious was because storage equipment was made from spatial materials that contained spatial energy. This kind of material couldn't be found in many places on the continent. Now that Chu Tian had easily created a space that was so big, it was hard to imagine. Chu Tian said with a nod, this is a space-forming array, it is used to create a small space. The more energy it provides, the larger the space. We can use this technology to create a space warehouse. But compared to storage equipment, the space warehouse's flexibility is far inferior. This technology has a lot of prospects. Chu Tian gave a simple introduction. I'll give you an example. We can easily transport items to any corner of the continent through the space. This also means that if we store things here, we can open a space on the other side of the continent and take them out. This was more than just prospects. If Chu Tian's communication technology could allow the continent to exchange information, then this spatial technology could perfectly allow the exchange of materials, allowing products from all over the world to flow quickly. Not only did it contain a large business opportunity, it would also lead to an irresistible revolution. I have a complete theoretical foundation, but the technology isn't stable enough. Chu Tian looked at little Princess Vivian. I need your talent and ability to perfect this great technology with me. This spatial research room is for this purpose. Are you willing to accept this job? Vivian was at a loss for words. She had only joined Miracle Commerce for a day. Giving her this kind of important technology, this showed how much importance he placed on Vivian. Vivian could clearly feel that this was a chance to change the continent. Chapter 348. I will definitely complete this task. Vivian straightened her back and her face turned red as she loudly shouted out like she was making a vow. Meng Qingwu's heart calmed down. Vivian had already completely immersed herself in her role. Chu Tian was prepared to train Vivian into Miracle Commerce's first spatial engineer. Because Meng Yingying could duplicate source spirits, she also had spatial abilities. Only because she wasn't strong enough, she couldn't participate in spatial operations and could only provide some basic support. Meng Qingwu was responsible for coordinating the resources and building a complete space warehouse in the shortest amount of time. How could Vivian not be excited? She had traveled tens of thousands of miles to come to southern Xia and even disregarded the danger of being punished by her clansmen, but now it seemed like it was all worth it. She was like a lost traveler who had suddenly found her goal. Vivian vowed that she would not disappoint Chu Tian's expectations. The elves did not have much interest in leaving their names in history, but they could not reject something that would benefit their descendants. Once this space warehouse was completed, the clansmen would be shocked. At that time, I will build a space warehouse in my tribe and let the elves experience the benefits of a space warehouse. At that time, who would dare to gossip about us? After all, to the elves, a space warehouse was simply a dream come true. The elves did not like coming into contact with the outside world and longed to change their quality of life. This was something that was hard to achieve in the past. But now it was different. The elves did not need to deal with other races. As long as they had a space warehouse and communication device, if they wanted to buy materials or daily necessities in the future, they just needed to make a call and place enough source stones in the space warehouse to receive the goods from the other side. How convenient! How beautiful! Not only would it not destroy the peaceful life the elves yearned for, it would also allow the elves to sell their specialties and it would allow the rich resources of the outside world to flow into the elves, making the elves richer, stronger, and richer in life. Even the most old-fashioned elves would not reject this kind of good thing. If Vivian could help the elves become the first to benefit from the spatial technology, she would become one of the greatest heroes in the history of the elves. The pioneers were always the biggest beneficiaries. The elves dared to be the first to become rich and powerful before the other forces and kingdoms could react. Vivian did not want to go home anymore. Now, even if her father came, she would not leave. Vivian looked at Chu Tian as if she was looking at a god. I didn't expect you to even be able to create space. Is there anything in this world that you can't do? Although I don't deny that I'm strong, this source energy array isn't creating a space, it's just borrowing space. Chu Tian gave a laugh. Although the little elf's worship was very useful, Chu Tian still needed to spread the knowledge of spatial technology. I do have a way to create a space, but with the power of a third-level source energy array, it is far from reaching the goal of creating a space. I can only borrow the existing space. Borrow? What do you mean, borrow? The space domain is incomparably profound. If you want to master it, it will not be something that can be mastered overnight. However, since I have the time, I will tell you a little about it. Chu Tian pointed at the source energy array on the ground and said, this source energy array looks like it's creating a storage space on the surface, but it's not creating space at all. It's just capturing a subspace, and this subspace already existed. Chu Tian explained the basic understanding of space to the three of them. Originally, this world was like a giant bubble. When the great ancient world collapsed, the large bubble turned into countless small bubbles, and these small bubbles separated to form different planes. Each independent small bubble had countless smaller bubbles attached to it. There were very few small bubbles that could mature into a spatial structure. After these mature spaces were captured, they could be used to create various secret realms. However, most of the small bubbles, because they were very small, they could not fully develop the spatial laws, so they could not be used to store life energy as a subspace. The space warehouse was a technology that used subspace. This source energy array captured and stabilized the subspace, opening a passage to the subspace and using it to store things. So it's like this. The three of them were enlightened. Although it was only the most basic knowledge of space, it was still too advanced for the three of them. It was like they had touched a whole new world. Because the subspace itself exists, even if we close the source energy array, the things we store will not disappear. We can just open it when we need to take something out. Meng Qingguo gave a heartfelt sigh. This truly is a safe and perfect technology. Meng Qingguo had just found out that maintaining this subspace required a large amount of energy. The 4 energy pillars had been consumed by half in just a while. Although the cost of energy was low in this era, it couldn't be used like this. If the space warehouse collapsed when the energy disappeared, it would be too unsafe. If it was attacked or malfunctioned, wouldn't the things inside the space warehouse be lost? After understanding the theory, Meng Qingguo was completely relieved. Once this spatial technology was successfully developed, it would have a very wide range of uses. Chu Tian said, this technology is very attractive, but there are still many problems that need to be solved. Meng Yingying was puzzled. I think it's perfect, why can't we use it immediately? There are 2 problems that need to be solved. Chu Tian explained. First, there are hundreds of millions of subspaces floating in this world, and they are all different in size. If we use this formation to directly summon them, then it will be full of uncertainty. This time, we will capture this space, and the next time, we will capture another space. If we can't accurately identify the space, then this technique is meaningless. So it's like this. Then what about the second problem? The second problem is for the future. We need to avoid illegal summons, for example, our space warehouse being stolen by others. Although it is hard to do with technology and probability, we have to prepare ahead of time. Chu Tian had decided to develop spatial technology, so he had to do his best to make it perfect. This was because spatial technology couldn't compare to the previous technology. The previous technology could only be considered low-end technology, they could all be replaced by higher-level technology. Only spatial technology was high-end technology that couldn't be replaced. Spatial technology had limitless possibilities and he had planned on personally using it. However, spatial technology was at the third level and Chu Tian still needed some time to break through to the true spirit realm. Adding in the importance of the elves in Miracle Commerce's plan, Chu Tian decided to give some low-end spatial technology to Vivian. This would be an important chip to win over the elves in the future. Vivian's cultivation wasn't weak, she had innate spatial energy, was the elven princess, and was a simple person. She also matched the goals of Miracle Commerce, so she met all the requirements. Chu Tian said to Vivian, "If you want to become a qualified spatial engineer, you must learn how to find subspaces, mark subspaces, and modify subspaces. From today onwards, I will start from zero and only teach you the basics of spatial technology. Miracle Commerce's first space warehouse will be given to you." Vivian's face turned completely red. She felt like her blood was boiling. The continent's first spatial engineer. I'm going to become the continent's first spatial engineer. Vivian almost couldn't suppress her ecstasy and excitement, wanting to shout out. Calm down, I have to calm down. I am now an important person of Miracle Commerce. Chu Tian definitely wouldn't want to give this important technology to an immature person. Chu Tian looked at the little elf who was about to suffer internal injuries and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Alright, I'll continue talking about the basics of spatial technology. Learn as much as you can, and if you don't understand anything, you can find the young miss. Her source spirit is special and her learning ability is 100 times faster than yours. If you don't understand, she will definitely understand. He didn't even finish speaking. A griffin knight suddenly rushed over to the Yun sect. Greetings to the country guarding ruler, Cloud Dream Marquis. Urgent military report. His Majesty is asking the two of you to quickly head over. Meng Qinggu was a bit stunned. What is going on? The Griffin Knight had a serious expression. The Warhound's fleet has been detected. I'm afraid the decisive battle is about to begin. They really know how to pick the right time. Chu Tian gloomily shook his head and said to the little elf with an apologetic look, I'm sorry, I'll be busy for the next few days, so I'll have to slow down the teaching matter. Vivian's eyes were about to spit out flames. Damn! 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 These disgusting and dirty spirit beasts, they could have come at any time, but they had to come at this princess' most important moment to cause trouble. Angering me to death, I must exterminate them all. Meng Qinggu looked at the angry little elf and her heart slightly skipped a beat. She tried to persuade her, Southern Xia is about to go to war with the Warhound's kingdom. This battle will be very dangerous and Central State will become the battlefield. You are an outsider and shouldn't get involved. Why don't you leave for a few days and come back after this matter is over? How can I do that? I've already joined Miracle Commerce. Vivian was most worried that the spirit beasts would cause trouble for Miracle Commerce. When she saw that Meng Qinggu was about to speak, she quickly cut her off and said, Don't say any more, I must go with you to fight the spirit beasts. Actually I, Vivian, have always hated the spirit beasts and can't wait to eliminate them all. Vivian strongly expressed that she wanted to participate in the battle. Chu Tian naturally couldn't ask for more. As for whether he would feel guilty, don't joke around. Did Chu Tian really think that the elves were a group of good people? The elves were kind by nature, but this kind of kindness was only towards their own kind. The elves had been able to reproduce on the continent for so many years, surviving the slaughter of countless other races and walking towards glory. Just this point alone showed that they were not easy to deal with. There were many races that had been exterminated because of the elves. When the elves dealt with their enemies, they would not be any kinder than humans. Chapter 349. It was reasonable for Vivian to hate the spirit beasts. The spirit beasts and the elves could be considered mortal enemies. The elves had been the rulers of the continent for a long time, but the elves had a slow population growth and they did not have a strong heart, so they were chased by the aggressive spirit beasts. The two clans had a fierce battle. The elves had the absolute advantage at first, suppressing the spirit beasts and almost exterminating the spirit beasts. Only, the spirit beasts were cheap, but they had a strong reproductive ability and a fast metabolism. Every time they were defeated, they would recover in just a few decades. The two clans fought for thousands of years and the elves' population became smaller and smaller. They were suppressed and the situation became worse and worse. Finally, in a decisive battle, the spirit beasts defeated the elves, causing the elves who once ruled the continent to fall from their divine altar. When the spirit beasts thought that they could replace the elves, another race suddenly joined the race's competition. This race was the human race. The humans' reproductive ability was only inferior to the spirit beasts. They were more intelligent, civilized, cunning, and fickle. The spirit beasts and humans had been evenly matched in the past few years, so there was no clear winner. The previous overlord, the elves, although they were a peak power, in the long run, the elves no longer had the power or ability to rule the continent. How many elves had the spirit beasts killed? It was because of their history that the elves hated the spirit beasts. Vivian was familiar with this since she was young, and adding in the fact that the spirit beasts in the Forest of Chaos would steal and steal, in Vivian's eyes, the spirit beasts were the embodiment of evil. They were the pests of the continent, lowly and cruel creatures that should be exterminated. Although the elves did not have any good feelings towards the humans because there were always greedy human traffickers that came to kidnap elven girls, compared to the spirit beasts, the humans were considered good citizens. Central State's temporary king's residence. The miracle commerce people had all arrived. Princess Vivian was wearing a flower crown, and her clothes were made of leaves. She was barefooted, and her strange attire was very eye-catching among the humans. Dongfang Qian naturally noticed this as well. His eyes flickered slightly, but he didn't ask any questions. The war hounds have already set off, our army must prepare a countermeasure. Southern Summer King, you can be assured. Meng Qinggu said in a confident voice, our army has over 100,000 source energy weapons, 10,000 source energy bombs, and 4 source energy cannons. As long as we equip them with the Central State Fleet and intercept them on the water, it's hard to say who will win. The Cloud Dream Marquis words are wrong. The warhounds have reached 600,000 soldiers and they have come out in full force, clearly showing their intent to fight. Our Northern Legion has 300,000 soldiers, and all of them are made up of ground cavalry. If they are converted to naval forces, their combat power will be greatly reduced. The Central State Army of 100,000 was not the main force of the Southern Summer Country, so their battle strength could be ignored. When the two armies confront each other, our side is obviously the weaker side. There is no advantage in not fighting. That was true. In terms of military strength, Southern Xia was not their match. The warhounds were not good at fighting on the water, but wasn't Southern Xia not? A valiant cavalry unit had been turned into a navy. They had nowhere to display their martial prowess. They were like a wolf with its claws and teeth pulled out. Not to mention the Central State Army. They weren't the main force in the first place, so they couldn't even be on the stage. When the two armies fought, they would collapse as soon as they came into contact. The other qualified commander of the army would definitely analyze the strengths and weaknesses of both sides. Dongfang Gan looked at the map of the 6 southern counties on the wall. If I was the Fang King, I would not fight on the water and would use any method to land. I would use the land that I'm more proficient in to destroy the Southern Summer Army. If my guesses aren't wrong, the Warhounds' fleet will split up midway and use different routes to approach the Central State Army. They will land on land and decide the outcome of the battle. Everyone's expressions changed. If it was like this, it would be hard to handle. They did not know how the Warhounds' fleet would change, and the Central State Army did not have the advantage in numbers, so it was impossible to surround them. A general stood up and said, "We will quickly send out troops and try to break them one by one." It's not that easy. The Four States Lake is very large and the routes can change at any time. How can we block 600,000 scattered enemies? Dongfang Gan said this Four States Lake's main force attacking Central State could be a pretense. I've studied the Fang King's tactics. This person likes to make risky moves, so there's an 80 to 90% chance he will lead his air force to cross the northern mountains. While we are fighting the war hounds at the Four States Lake, he will launch a surprise attack on Central State City and stab us in the heart. Everyone looked at each other in blank dismay. These southern summer generals had followed Dongfang Gan for many years. Dongfang Gan's perception was very strong, he could accurately predict the enemy's actions every time. This was also the reason why he was undefeatable. Everyone thought about the previous two battles and the Fang King's arrangements were very likely. But if it was like this, how could Southern Xia resist? Southern Xia was too weak. Whether it was the air force or the ground force, they would find it hard to resist. Chu Tian broke out in laughter. Dongfang Gan was waiting for him to speak, and seeing him finally speak, he immediately asked, "Why is the country guarding ruler laughing? Did the Southern Summer King really forget, or did he deliberately not mention it? Our air force cannot compare to the other side, but we have an underwater force that the warhounds definitely do not have. The Four States Lake battlefield is Southern Xia's territory. If you give me 100,000 troops and equip them with Miracle Commerce's weapons, I can guarantee that the 600,000 warhounds will not be able to land. The other 300,000 will be left to defend Central State City. I don't believe that the warhounds can break through Central State." 100,000 people. Everyone looked at each other in blank dismay. This boast was way too big. Chu Tian was filled with confidence. "I never boast, I can do what I say. 100,000 people is enough, do you not believe me?" Dongfang Gan thought about it for 2 seconds. "I'll give you 200,000 people. Don't be greedy and try to delay the enemy's formation. Central State City has 200,000 people, it's enough to guarantee their safety." Dongfang Gan said, "I'll give the Griffin Knights to you to protect the Central State Fleet. There's no need to worry about Central State City." Damn, this fellow still did not believe me. "Even if you don't believe me, I don't believe you." Chu Tian said, "In order to guarantee Central State's safety, I will leave some Miracle Commerce people to defend. Nangong, Yingying, Vivian, you will stay in Central State to help the Southern Summer King. Nangong Yun, Meng Yingying. What use could these two girls have?" Dongfang Gan's eyes fell onto Vivian. He noticed Chu Tian's words. Miracle Commerce people. When Chu Tian said this, the elf did not show any displeasure and instead had a calm expression. What happened? Could it be that Chu Tian managed to rope in this elf this quickly? What kind of background did this elf have? Directly roping her in like this shouldn't be a problem, right? No matter what, this was a special time. This elf was very strong and would have quite a bit of use. Dongfang Gan directly sent out the royal proclamation, Central State Shinfeng Ho, Chu Tian, and Meng Qingwu will lead the Central State Fleet to the Four States Lake and welcome the mighty Warhounds army. 300 large warships were already waiting for orders. 200,000 Southern Xia soldiers gathered at the port. The Southern Summer King, Dongfang Gan, personally came out to send the army off. Dongfang Gan's style was different from Dongfang Hao's. Dongfang Gan did not like to play tricks. After simply motivating the soldiers, he immediately began to coordinate the transportation of supplies. The 100,000 storm cavalry left their horses and turned into the navy. The Southern Summer King understood the army very well. Most of the 100,000 soldiers were good at archery, and archers were a very important part of the fleet. Of the 200,000 soldiers, a third of them were equipped with source energy firearms. Even if they weren't equipped with source energy firearms, most of them were equipped with heavy crossbows. Hung, dong, dong. There was a series of deep rolling sounds. The newly produced source energy crossbow cannons from Miracle Commerce were being installed on the warships. These source energy crossbow cannons were modified from traditional crossbows, and the crossbow bolts they shot were very destructive high-explosive bolts. There was a total of over 100 of them. They had a range of several thousand meters. There were over 3,000 heavy explosive crossbow bolts. This weapon would become one of the most destructive weapons in a warship battle. Not only could it cause large amounts of damage to the enemy, it could also destroy the warhound's ships. Other than the source energy crossbow cannons, Miracle Commerce also made several strange launchers. These launchers were used to launch bombs, and compared to the simple projectile weapons from before, these special launchers were more accurate. The shells they used were also specially made, so they had a very terrifying destructive might. Finally, there were 2 shining source energy cannons that were fixed on Chu Tian's flagship. These 2 source energy cannons were the strongest weapons Miracle Commerce had ever produced. Even with many factories operating at the same time, they had only made 4 cannons. 2 were left in central state and 2 were brought out. These were true killing weapons. Everything is ready. Let's set sail. When the horn sounded, the Central State Fleet carried the hopes of countless Southern Xia citizens and slowly sailed out of the Central State Port towards the Four States Lake. Chu Tian crossed his legs as he sat on the deck to enjoy the wind. I never thought that father would lead an army into battle. Young miss, are you nervous? Meng Qinggu looked over at him. What are you nervous about? It was so dangerous last time, but we still survived. This time we're fully prepared. I don't believe they can play any tricks. Hey, it's best if you're not nervous. Chu Tian stood up and his eyes sparkled. Damn, it's time for us to take our revenge. Have you notified Boss Yu's side? Relax, I've already used the communication device to contact the Giant Shark Gang's headquarters. Boss Yu has already organized a vanguard and is heading towards the warhounds ahead of us. Chu Tian nodded in satisfaction. He hoped that they would do a good job, saving quite a bit of effort for Chu Tian. No matter how careful the Fang King was, he could not understand Central State's strength in this short amount of time. The Giant Shark Gang was a large problem that they didn't expect. Chapter 350. 3,000 Giant Shark Gang elites were standing on the small island with bare arms. Each gang member was carrying a large backpack, and there was a round object in the backpack that was the size of a washbasin. This was the underwater bomb that Miracle Commerce had carefully developed. The 5 leaders stood in front with serious expressions and their hands behind their backs. Boss Yu stood in the center with a fish-bone cane, looking over everyone with a deep and sharp gaze. Ever since my Giant Shark Gang has joined hands with Miracle Commerce, we have grown by leaps and bounds in just a short 2 months. We have obtained large amounts of resources, and our gang members have quickly increased in strength, becoming the #1 gang in Southern Xia. Now that Southern Xia is in danger and Miracle Commerce has been implicated, it is time for us to play our role. Everyone loudly shouted, prepare to serve at any time. Working with Miracle Commerce in this period of time, everyone had benefited greatly. Everyone could feel the shocking potential of Miracle Commerce, and as long as they followed Miracle Commerce, everyone could obtain an unimaginable future. One's loss, one's glory, one's glory. Southern Xia was a matter of life and death. Once Southern Xia fell, how would Miracle Commerce survive? Once Miracle Commerce fell, how would the Giant Shark Gang survive? The war hounds were their common enemy. Everyone had the same thoughts and the same logic. This battle was unavoidable and they could only give it their all. Gang leader, the warhounds' army is within 200 miles. Alright, let's go. The 5 leaders personally led the 3,000 elites into the water. The 3,000 people were like incomparably agile fish, diving several hundred meters into the water. The Giant Shark Gang had already explored the Four States Lake's underwater environment, and the surrounding water area was specially chosen by the Giant Shark Gang for the warhounds. This was the deep water area, being several hundred meters deep. Secondly, the underwater terrain was complex with dense reefs, suitable for cover. Even if the warhounds experts opened their mind's eye, they would not be able to find the Giant Shark Gang in the water. The Giant Shark Gang were all cultivators with special bloodlines, otherwise even a true spirit cultivator would not be able to hide in the water for several hours. All of their actions were carried out in the deep water, ensuring that nothing would go wrong. Night slowly fell. The Four States Lake was calm and peaceful. The 3,000 giant shark gang elites passed through the depths of the lake and finally arrived at the Warhound's fleet. At this time, the Warhounds were only halfway through their journey, but the fleet had not split up and was still in a concentrated state. Southern Xia knew of the Warhound situation and the Warhounds knew of Southern Xia's situation. Now that Southern Xia's fleet had just left, the two sides could not come in contact. Separating too early would reveal their intentions and routes. When Boss Yu looked up from the bottom of the lake, he saw that in the quiet and dark lake, there were hundreds and thousands of black shadows moving. The number was so huge that it was shocking. "Do it!" Boss Yu gestured. The giant shark gang members all floated up and began to split up. They slowly went under the bed and took out a large round-shaped bomb from their backpacks. There was a nail on the top of the bomb that could easily cut through the bottom of the ship. Moreover, it was secured by a hook. Large ships that were more than 100 meters in length were equipped with at least 4 bombs, while the smaller ones were equipped with 2 bombs. The medium-sized ships were equipped with 1 bomb in the center. As for the smaller ships, if there were any left over, they were equipped with as many bombs as possible. In less than an hour, the giant shark gang had already completed their mission. They activated the bomb's explosion function and quickly left the area without anyone knowing. The Warhound's army was still valiantly charging forward, not knowing that a seed of destruction had already been planted under their feet. Before dawn, the Warhound's strong and fierce fleet passed through the mist that covered the lake, advancing in the direction of Central State. The Fang King's fierce flag fluttered above the sails. The hundreds and thousands of ships were like a large group of terrifying beasts. The Warhounds had 3 times the number of ships compared to Chu Tian. There were less than a quarter of the ships and most of them came from Furnace State because over half of the ships from Tsang State and the Imperial region had been burned by the calm martial ruler. What if there weren't enough ships? Of course they had to steal them. Because of this, the Warhound's fleet was very messy. There were many merchant ships, mercenary ships, and even large fishing boats. Although there were many ships, it was hard to carry an army of this size. Because of this, most of the ships were filled with people. This could be seen from the waterline. Wang Tianlong and Nangong Ling were fully armed as they stood on the deck. A Warhound's chief with 2 blades on his back and his body covered in black bandages was coldly standing beside the 2 of them. He said in a low and deep voice, "Our army is already halfway and the Southern Xia army has already set sail. It is time to carry out the Fang King's strategy." This Warhound's chief was a true spirit expert. He was the only true spirit expert in the fleet. Wang Tianlong and Nangong Ling were just puppets. Although they were in charge of giving orders, they were all under the Fang King's orders. This true spirit realm Warhound's chief was in charge of monitoring the 2 of them. If the 2 of them made any small movements, the Warhound's chief could directly kill them. The 2 of them were very unhappy, but what could they do? The southern summer country had no choice but to lower their heads to the Warhounds. "Immediately pass down my order." Wang Tianlong ordered the fleet, "The 5 armies will split up and advance at full speed to land." When Wang Tianlong's order was given, Hong! The leftmost warship of the Warhounds exploded with a shocking flame. In an instant, several explosions occurred. The extremely ferocious energy was like a volcanic eruption. A ferocious pillar of fire pierced through the bottom of the warship, blasting a large hole in the warship. Following that, the entire warship was torn in half. That fiery light shot up over 20 meters high and countless beast spirits were thrown out like raindrops. Large amounts of debris were scattered all around, stirring up huge waves that flipped several of the small merchant ships on the side upside down. Wang Tianlong and the others were shocked. Enemy attack, enemy attack. No one could have imagined that they would encounter an enemy attack this quickly, but they couldn't find a single shadow. Where was the enemy? This explosion was just the beginning. Hung, 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 hung. The surface of the 4 states lake released an unbelievable explosion as countless flames soared into the sky. The entire warhound's fleet was blown to pieces and most of the warships were destroyed by the explosion. Several 100,000 warhound soldiers fell into the water and the terrifying high temperature evaporated the water, instantly turning it into a large amount of mist that rose into the air, completely covering the area. The entire lake was filled with waves and the lake water seemed like it was boiling. The surface of the lake, which had been calm just a moment ago, abruptly exploded into a shocking tsunami. There was an entire 1 to 2,000 explosions and each bomb was carefully made by Miracle Commerce. When the large amount of refined crystal oil was detonated, it created an extremely high temperature and shockwave. The warhound's spirit beasts were not prepared at all and with such a fierce bombardment, it was hard to imagine the casualties caused. At least 100,000 warhound's spirit beasts were killed in the explosions. The entire warhound's fleet instantly collapsed. When Wang Tianlong fell into the water, he felt that the surrounding lake water was boiling violently. In such a short period of time, such a high intensity of energy had been released. The entire lake was boiling, and a large amount of water vapor soared into the sky, covering an area of dozens of kilometers. Countless spirit beasts miserably cried out as they struggled in the boiling water. Large amounts of corpses were cooked rotten, releasing a nauseating smell. They couldn't see anything and the fleet had completely collapsed. All orders were useless. What is going on here? Why did the warships all explode? Wang Tianlong could not believe what was happening in front of him no matter what. The majestic army that swept through the world had turned into drowned chickens in an instant. The warships were all destroyed and the southern Xia army was nowhere to be seen. How could Wang Tianlong not go crazy with rage? The warhounds never thought that they would be attacked by Miracle Commerce ahead of time because they had been observing the situation in the central state port and Chu Tian had sent the giant shark gang's elites. The giant shark gang's headquarters was in the center of the Four States Lake, so the giant shark gang directly attacked from their headquarters. Naturally they would have an unexpected effect. When the warhounds' fleet suffered a serious setback. Chu Tian saw the flames in the distance and revealed a satisfied smile, have the fleet set up an iron lock formation. The 200 ships were divided into 2 rows. The first row was placed horizontally with a wide deck filled with archers holding bows and guns, all aiming forward. There were a few ships that had crossbow cannons and launchers. The second row of ships was in a charge formation, standing vertically between the ships in front. It seemed like as long as the order was given, these ships would immediately charge forward. Quang, dang, dang. At this time, incomparably thick fine iron chains connected the ships together, making them as stable as Mount Tai and as firm as a rock. Chu Tian was sitting on the flagship, leisurely waiting for something. Shen Fengho landed in front of him and asked with a puzzled expression, "Why did you give the order to stop advancing?" Other than that, this iron lock formation can stabilize the fleet, but it greatly restricts the fleet's flexibility. Once the enemy launches a sneak attack, we won't be able to react in time. What's the rush? This. Chu Tian pointed at the misty lake and said, "Look." When Shen Fengho looked into the distance, his eyes suddenly froze. What is this? On the calm Four States Lake, there was a blue line that suddenly appeared. It looked like a mountain range, but the strange thing was, why was there a mountain on the Four States Lake? Just when Shen Fengho was confused. Suddenly, a warm and humid wind blew, accompanied by a light drizzle. Even the rainwater was warm. The blue outline was getting closer and closer. Shen Fengho's pupils suddenly shrank. What kind of mountain range was this? This was clearly a tsunami that was over 100 meters tall. Be careful. The water covered the sky and earth as it swept over. Fortunately, Chu Tian had connected the ships in advance and anchored them. Although this huge tsunami was very fierce, it did not cause too much damage to the ships of southern Xia. Meng Qingguo and Chen Bingyu were both soaked. These two beauties with the best figures in Miracle Commerce were wet in front of Chu Tian. Their voluptuous bodies were naturally revealed, giving Chu Tian a feast for his eyes. Meng Qinggu looked at everything that was happening in front of her in shock and muttered to herself, "This is too exaggerated." Chapter 351. The Four States Lake was filled with waves, just like a storm. If Southern Xia hadn't made preparations, they would have suffered losses facing this kind of attack. They could feel this wave from this far away. Then what was the scene of the Warhound's army in the center of the explosion? Chu Tian gave a few loud laughs. All right, immediately pull out the anchor. The formation doesn't change, just line up and move forward at full speed. There is a pot of drowned chickens waiting for us to clean up, everyone charge forward and surround them. When Chu Tian's orders were sent out, Southern Xia's fleet immediately moved. Several hundred warships lined up and surrounded the warhounds. After around half a day, there were large amounts of debris on the lake. Broken masts. Broken decks. Broken flags. Large amounts of warhounds' corpses filled the water. There were still many warhound soldiers that were still alive that were gathering together, trying to find a way to escape by floating objects. Hey, can you hear me? Chu Tian took a large loudspeaker from Meng Qingwu's hands and his voice spread across the lake, naturally reaching the other side's ears. I am the Central State Rescue Team's Captain Chu Tian. I heard that there was a large disaster here, so I came all the way here. I never thought that this disaster would be this serious, but you don't need to worry, I'll help you end your pain. Prepare the ballistae and bows. The warhound soldiers were so angry that their noses almost went crooked. This damn fellow, he actually used this kind of despicable method. Damn, I knew it was you who did it. Wang Tianlong was in a very sorry state as he stood on a half-turned warship with several hundred warhound soldiers gathered around him. This will completely anger the Fang King and the Eagle Burial Empire. No one can save you now, just wait for our revenge. Chu Tian observed them. Wang Tianlong and Nangong Ling, these two traitors were injured, but they were still alive. Their luck really isn't bad. The two of them had a good understanding of Southern Xia, so it was natural for the Fang King to give them command. Other than that, Chu Tian also found a true Spirit Realm Warhounds expert, but it was only one, so there was nothing to worry about. After all, the Warhounds' army was already like this, how could they still resist? The Fang King was not here. Dongfang Gan's guess was correct. The Fang King launched two attacks at the same time. The warhounds used water to transport their troops and they used spatial techniques to sneak attack the main city. It was a good plan. Southern Xia's army was very weak. Even if they could stop the warhounds' fleet, they wouldn't have the strength to defend the main city. If they could defend the main city, they wouldn't be able to stop this army of 600,000 people. The fall of Central State City was almost certain, it was only a matter of time. However, was it really that easy? Chu Tian had just casually tripped the warhounds and the 600,000 warhounds army was stunned. What could they do now? Chu Tian was just getting started. Chu Tian held the megaphone and continued to shout, "Everyone, please prepare yourselves, there will be some bumps later." The warhound soldiers all opened their eyes wide in shock. What else did this guy want? Chu Tian snapped his fingers. Several silhouettes appeared in the clouds which turned out to be several giant airships. Each airship was escorted by a small group of Griffin Knights. When the airships appeared, large amounts of heavy bombs fell like rain, constantly falling onto the warhound's fleet. Wave after wave of explosions filled the Four States Lake. After the powerful bombs exploded in the water, the terrifying pressure created was enough to shatter a person's internal organs. With this kind of wild bombardment, the casualties the warhounds suffered was unimaginable. Damn! Shoot them down for me. A group of vulture cavalry moved out. The Fang King was worried that the fleet would suffer a loss on the water, so he left a group of vultures to protect the warships. Who would have thought that before the vulture cavalry could even get close to the airships, the Griffin Knights would charge forward with their source energy submachine guns. In that instant, large amounts of light bullets fell onto the vulture cavalry. The fierce firepower stopped the vulture cavalry without any suspense. Wang Tianlong was filled with rage and the warhound's chief was also filled with rage. They immediately gave the order, charge forward at all costs and take their warships. The warhounds were worthy of being an incomparably fierce spirit beast race. Even in this kind of situation, they still resisted and swam through the water, attempting to take Southern Xia's warships. This is just the appetizer. Chu Tian raised the sound of the loudspeaker to the max and loudly shouted, "Now, it's time for the main course." More than 100 high explosive crossbow bolts shot out, shooting straight into the lake. The entire surface of the lake was instantly covered in high temperature and flames. The fire dragon and water dragon danced together, the violent shockwave shattering the organs of the beast's spirits. This wave of fierce attack was like throwing a bomb into the water filled with fish, instantly killing and injuring a large number of fish. Activate the launcher. The Miracle Commerce staff opened a rectangular box. This launcher was actually a honeycomb-shaped launcher. When the Miracle Commerce staff activated the launch button, waves after waves of bombs shot into the sky. They were very dense as they fell onto the water, instantly creating a chain of explosions. Too terrifying. How was this a war? This was simply a one-sided slaughter. The 3 waves of attacks were very short, not giving the warhounds any time to react. Several tens of thousands of warhound soldiers died and almost all the warhound soldiers were heavily injured. But, the warhound soldiers were also very fierce. Although they fell into the water, they wildly swam forward, charging forward without a care for their lives. They used their spirit energy to block the attacks, not caring about the cost to steal the ships. The warhounds were much stronger than the southern summer country. There were many peak awakened soul cultivators among these warhound soldiers. This was a very dangerous fight for these trapped beasts, so they could not be careless. They were getting closer and closer. Fire! The Southern Xia archers began to attack. Light bullets and arrows continued to fall into the water, slaughtering the spirit beasts in the water. The warhounds were already in a sorry state, how could they withstand this kind of fierce and concentrated attack? The number of casualties kept increasing and the blood of the warhounds turned the surface of the lake murky. At this time, roar! A warhounds expert jumped out of the water. It was the true spirit realm chief accompanying the army. He was holding a long blade in each hand as he slashed out at the warship in front of him. When that resplendent blade light slashed out, the surface of the lake was split apart. It was separated by over 100 meters as it slammed into the warship. Hong! The immense power stirred up the entire fleet. The entire warship was split into 3 pieces. Everyone's expressions changed. This warship was several dozen meters long and it was even larger than a tall building. The warship itself was incomparably sturdy, but there was actually a person that could split it apart. This kind of strength was enough to shock people, truly worthy of being a warhound's expert. Kill! The warhound's warriors do not fear death. The warhound's chief roared out in a hysterical voice, "Fight it out with them." The warhounds suffered heavy casualties, but the more desperate the situation was, the fiercer the spirit beasts would be. One warhounds expert after another circulated their spirit energy to jump out of the water. They stepped on the debris floating on the surface of the lake, running like they were riding on the waves. They were like a group of water spiders as they approached the Southern Xia warships. An injured beast was the most dangerous. These people were already prepared to perish together with the Southern Xia people. Over half of the 600,000 warhound soldiers had been eaten by the fish. Even if the remaining warhounds attacked with all their strength, the threat could not be underestimated. Young miss, activate the source energy cannon. Meng Qinggu had already been waiting for the order, so she immediately activated the source energy cannon on the flagship. This source energy cannon was made of a precious 3rd-level metal, being a dark silver color. The smooth surface was covered in runes and the structure was very precise, just like a work of art. Big Sister Bing, give me the cannon shell. Chen Bingyu threw a cannon shell that was thicker than an arm over. Chu Tian placed the entire source energy cannon shell into the cannon, and the patterns on the surface of the cannon began to glow. An incomparably strong energy condensed in the cannon, and an incomparably dazzling light was released from the cannon's mouth. A true spirit expert was too fast. It was hard to lock onto the other side with the naked eye. The source energy cannon was very strong, and Chu Tian only had one chance, because once he failed, the other side would be alerted and be on guard. It would be much harder to succeed again, so he had to succeed on his first try. Mind's lamp, ignite. Chu Tian's divine sense locked onto the other side, and he suddenly activated the source energy cannon. With a heaven-shattering sound, the empty cannon shell was ejected and a wave of white light shot out like a meteor. It tore through the sky and tore through the void, surpassing the speed of sound by several times as it instantly landed on the true spirit expert. Fast. Too fast. It was already too late for the Warhound's chief to react. When the white light swept past him, half of his body disappeared. A respected true spirit expert. He had actually been killed by the other side's strange weapon. It was this clean, without the slightest bit of hesitation. It simply made people's hairs stand on end. It wasn't just the Warhounds that were stunned, even the Southern Xia soldiers found this hard to believe. This kind of small kingdom did not have many true spirit experts, and each true spirit expert was no different from a spiritual god in their eyes. This kind of incomparably strong existence actually died to a weapon that Chu Tian had made in less than half a month. Chen Bingyu handed over another cannonball. Chu Tian placed the energy cannonball into the cannon and did not give the Warhounds any time to prepare. He immediately aimed the cannon at the lake and fired it again. The cannon released an intense flame and another large energy wave shot out. Dong! That terrifying temperature of several 100,000 degrees instantly evaporated a large part of the lake. The terrifying energy wave caused a second explosion, and several hundred Warhound soldiers lost their lives in the explosion. This time, even the fiercest soldier would collapse. In the eyes of the Warhound soldiers, Chu Tian was not a person at all. He was a demon, a terrifying war demon, a cruel killing demon. Chapter 352. The general situation had been decided. The Warhound's army was completely defeated. The first wave of explosions killed over 100,000 people, and the following waves of explosions killed over 100 to 200,000 people. The large-scale shooting arrows and continuous explosions killed over 100,000 people. A super army of 600,000 people. How many of them were left? The Warhounds were not afraid of death, but in this situation, they did not have any chance of winning at all. They did not even have a foothold. The unprecedented source energy cannons had completely destroyed the morale and confidence of the Warhounds. They had lost. They had completely lost. It's about time. Chu Tian felt that there would not be any more changes. Release the chains and charge forward with all your strength. Don't take any prisoners, kill them all. Chu Tian's cold voice was like the shadow of a death god that shrouded the hearts of the Warhounds. Was Chu Tian a bloodthirsty person? Of course not. But Chu Tian was not soft-hearted. The battle strength of these Warhound soldiers was more than 2 streets above Southern Xia's main force. If they were allowed to live, they would only cause trouble for Southern Xia. If they killed all 600,000 people at once, the Warhound's planes would not be able to recover for 3-5 years, and they would not be able to invade the south again. Stop killing with killing. They could only do this. After all, Chu Tian was a human. The Southern Xia warships released the chains, and the warships began to move forward at the same time. Source energy bullets and powerful arrows filled the sky, harvesting the lives of the Warhound soldiers. When a battle reached this point, even if they had several true spirit experts, it would be useless. The 600,000 Warhounds' army was destined to be completely annihilated on the Four States Lake. We're retreating. Wang Tianlong knew that there was no hope for this battle. The large amounts of arrows and bullets wildly raining down made Wang Tianlong's heart turn cold. He could only pull Nangong Ling and retreat. The warhounds were backed by the Eagle Burial Kingdom, so even if they lost all their soldiers, as long as the Eagle Burial Kingdom was here, Southern Summer would not dare attack the Imperial region. Where there was life, there was hope. Chu Tian revealed a cold smile seeing this. Want to escape? How could it be that easy? Whether it was the front line of defense or the fall of Royal City, Wang Tianlong had played an important role. Chu Tian hated traitors the most in his life. Moreover, this fellow had brought him and Miracle Commerce so much trouble and harm. I'll leave Nangong Ling to you. Leave Wang Tianlong to me. Chu Tian, Shen Fengho, and Chen Bingyu all jumped down from the warship at the same time. Chu Tian stepped on the floating planks of the water and shot forward like a meteor towards Wang Tianlong. He pulled out the netherworld sword from his back and the blade that was as smooth as a mirror was instantly ignited with flames. Flickering flame slash. A burning and resplendent sword light arrived in an instant. When Wang Tianlong felt the sharp sword chi coming straight at his back, he leaped forward, turned around in the air, and stabbed out with his spear. The instant the spear light and the sword chi collided, the pressure caused the surrounding lake water to explode. Countless water droplets fell. The two of them landed on different floating objects, facing each other several meters apart. Wang Tianlong's face turned terrifying. He never thought that not only would Chu Tian return alive from Imperial City, he would also make such large progress. He was now a late-awakened soul cultivator. Chu Tian raised his sword and pointed it at him. What goes around comes around. Didn't you feel good chasing father around Wang Yu? Now it's time to pay the interest. With just you. Don't think that you can compete with me just because your cultivation base has increased a bit. Wang Tianlong raised the spear in his hand and the spirit energy around him began to ripple. You don't have those corpses by your side, do you think you can still defeat me? Die. Wang Tianlong stabbed out with the spear in both hands. The lake water began to surge and formed 4-5 flood dragons that charged at Chu Tian at the same time. Flame Demon Transformation. As Chu Tian retreated, his body was suddenly covered in a layer of raging flames and he instantly turned into an incomparably tall demon. The powerful energy released from his body instantly evaporated the water dragons around him. A large burning sword slashed at Wang Tianlong. Before the sword even reached him, the fierce and cold sword chi actually froze the surrounding lake. When Chu Tian used the flame demon transformation before, he had to spend a long time accumulating netherworld ghost flames, but now he could instantly use it. It could be said that he had made a large progress. Wang Tianlong's talent was around the same as Chu Xinghe's. When Chu Tian's cultivation base was lower, he could use the flame demon transformation to defeat Chu Xinghe. If Wang Tianlong wanted to block it, it wouldn't be that easy. Flood Dragon Body Protection. Wang Tianlong's body was covered in mist as countless golden flood dragons quickly moved around him. Those golden figures moved back and forth, forming a golden cover around Wang Tianlong. Chu Tian's sword slashed at Wang Tianlong and the surrounding lake water evaporated, but Wang Tianlong's body wasn't injured at all. You can't break my defense. Wang Tianlong roared as he stabbed out with his spear. The flame demon's body was pierced through. Break for me. The flame demon's body was shattered by the violent strength. Meng Qinggu saw this scene from afar and she couldn't help covering her mouth. A peak 9th awakened soul layer cultivator was too strong, he could actually break Chu Tian's flame demon transformation. She knew that the essence of Chu Tian's flame demon transformation was to release the weapon's spirit's power and fuse it with his body. Although the flame demon transformation could increase his strength by a large amount, once the flame demon transformation was released, Chu Tian's netherworld sword would be weakened for a period of time and he wouldn't even be able to use his normal strength. Wang Tianlong was not pleased for long. Because he found that the netherworld ghost flames that had exploded had all gathered onto Chu Tian's body under some kind of gravitational force. The several-meter-tall flame demon had turned into a 2-meter-tall flame demon. At this moment, Chu Tian, from head to toe, from his arms to his weapons, he was completely covered in a layer of netherworld ghost flames. Only this layer of flames did not scatter, it was like an armor was attached to Chu Tian's body. He looked like a life form carved out of blue and white crystal. Wang Tianlong's pupils shrank. This is. Chu Tian's low and deep voice came from the crystal-like life form. This is a new move I've created, the second state of the flame demon transformation. The flame demon transformation was a secret technique Chu Tian had created based on the 9 demon and god transformation. It allowed Chu Tian to merge with the weapon spirit netherworld, increasing his strength by a large amount. When Chu Tian's cultivation base became a substitute, he had modified this secret technique and created this second state. The first state's specialty was becoming larger, increasing its destructive power and attack range. The second state's specialty was becoming smaller, decreasing its attack power, but increasing its flexibility and defense. Boring. No matter how many tricks you use, it's useless. Wang Tianlong thrust his spear at Chu Tian. Go die. Chu Tian's figure swayed. Ripples appeared on the surface of the water. Chu Tian instantly disappeared, leaving behind a sonic boom in the air. The spear glow created a giant wave on the surface of the lake, but it did not even touch the hem of Chu Tian's clothes. Such a fast speed. Perhaps it had already surpassed the speed of sound. Wang Tianlong was shocked. This speed was not inferior to his, it was even a bit faster than Wang Tianlong's. But this was impossible. Chu Tian only had a cultivation in the 7th awakened soul layer, how could he be this fast? So. A sword came slashing at his back. Wang Tianlong quickly raised his spear to stab back. Chu Tian quickly retreated, not having any intention of tangling with him. Wang Tianlong mainly cultivated a defensive cultivation technique, so he did not have a fast movement speed. Now that Chu Tian's speed was this fast, Wang Tianlong had no way of attacking him. Chu Tian could clearly see the flaw in Wang Tianlong's cultivation technique. Wang Tianlong's defensive cultivation technique was very strong, but once Wang Tianlong used this cultivation technique, only a true spirit realm expert could break through it. Even Chu Tian could not do this, at least not with a cultivation of the 7th to 8th awakened soul layer. However, this cultivation technique had a clear flaw, which was that it consumed too much energy. In other words, this defensive cultivation technique was very strong and it could be used to defend, making it hard for people to touch it. But to maintain this defense, it needed to burn a large amount of spirit energy. Chu Tian did not need to forcefully attack, he just needed to stall for time. When Wang Tianlong ran out of spirit energy, he could break him in one fell swoop. Wang Tianlong brandished his spear as he angrily attacked. But Chu Tian's speed was above his and Chu Tian's divine sense was also above his, so he could predict the enemy's movements, not letting Wang Tianlong touch a single hair on his body. Time ticked by. Chu Tian did not consume too much energy, but Wang Tianlong was already feeling like he couldn't hold on anymore. This defensive cultivation technique was different from the Starlight Immortal Body. Before the Starlight Immortal Body was attacked, it did not consume any energy, but Wang Tianlong's cultivation technique consumed a lot of energy. This was not a long-term defensive cultivation technique, but rather a life-saving technique. Damn! He couldn't keep fighting. The current battle situation was very disadvantageous to Wang Tianlong. If he kept fighting, even if he wasn't defeated by Chu Tian, he would still be surrounded by the Southern Summer King's army. I'll take your dog head another day. Wang Tianlong angrily said this sentence and was about to escape. However, how could he lose it so easily? Not long after Wang Tianlong left, a large amount of dark red needles shot out of the water. They instantly pierced through Wang Tianlong's protective spirit energy and landed on his body. Wang Tianlong gave a pitiful cry. That strong defense instantly revealed a flaw. Good chance. Chu Tian's legs stepped out of the water and with the speed of the flame demon transformation's second layer, he released the netherworld raging flame slash, increasing his speed even further. That sword glow was like a sharp beam of light as it instantly slashed across Wang Tianlong's neck. Wang Tianlong's eyes opened wide. He felt like he was flying and the entire world was spinning around him. When he looked down, he saw a headless body that had been slashed by a bright sword glow. Am I dead? If he knew this would happen, he would not have chosen this path. This was the last thought that remained in Wang Tianlong's mind. Chu Tian had used a trivial 7th awakened soul layer cultivation to kill a peak 9th awakened soul layer cultivator. On the other side, Shen Fengho and Chen Bingyu had worked together to kill Nan Gongling without any suspense. 2 traitors had been killed at the same time and the 600,000 warhounds army had been completely wiped out. Southern Xia had been defeated twice, their million soldiers had been killed, their imperial city had been taken, the imperial region had fallen, the marshal had died, and the southern summer king had been killed. All of their humiliation had finally ended. Chapter 353. To the north of Central State City, there were high mountains and layers of rocks, covering over 1,000 miles. The terrain was very complex and it was filled with fierce beasts, so there was not a single safe path. Even the most experienced mercenaries would find it hard to pass through, not to mention the tens of thousands of troops on the ground. It was because there was a natural barrier separating Central State and the north that no one thought the warhounds could attack from the north. On a mountain that was less than 100 miles from Central State, from the middle of the mountain to the peak, there was a dense amount of vultures. The black flag of the warhounds fluttered in the wind and the sharp weapons of the tens of thousands of soldiers released a cold glow that could freeze a person's heart. The 4 warhounds chiefs asked, "It's about time, let's begin." The Central State Army should already be fighting the warhounds at the 4 States Lake. The Central State Army was busy chasing the warhounds, so it was impossible for them to return. This was a good chance to launch a surprise attack on Central State. But for some unknown reason, the Fang King did not give the order and was thinking about something with a frown. What is the Fang King waiting for? As long as we take Central State, the southern summer country will belong to the warhounds and we will have 200 million slaves. The Fang King looked in the direction of Central State City. Central State has already sent half of their troops to the 4 States Lake. This means that the other side's commander has already calculated our deployment. I'm afraid Central State City has already prepared for a surprise attack. So what if they calculated it? The other side is Dongfang gone. If it was that easy to plot against, how could he defend the southern summer country for several decades? This person is hard to defeat with military tactics, so we can only use absolute strength. The warhounds chiefs were not surprised and they didn't care at all. This is a good chance for us. They want to take care of both sides, but they will lose both sides. The southern Xia army is weak, with 30,000 vultures carrying 40,000 elites. There will be a total of 70,000-80,000 people descending from the sky. The warhounds have more than enough strength to fight 1 against 3. After we destroy the morale of Central State City, the army will come ashore and take over the city, pacifying the southern summer country in one fell swoop. The confidence of the chiefs did not come from nowhere. The difference in strength between the warhounds and the southern summer country was too large. The warhounds were fierce by nature, so even if they fought 1 against 3, the warhounds' warriors would have a high chance of winning. Not to mention the fact that the warhounds elites and the true spirit realm chiefs led by the Fang King were participating. So what if Central Continent had 200,000 soldiers? They were all cavalry from the north, unable to form a strong enough defensive force. Ever since Central State was established, it was located in the center of southern Xia, with no danger in all directions. This could not be compared to Imperial City that had been under the threat of the warhounds for several hundred years. There was no other choice. He could only fight with all his might. The Fang King decided to take a risk this time. He personally rode on a vulture beast king and rose into the sky. The order was quickly passed down. 30,000 vultures entered battle mode. Each vulture beast carried 2 or 3 elite warriors as they continued to rise from this lonely peak. Attack! 30,000 majestic vultures were like a large black cloud as they swept towards Central Continent City. At this moment, Central State City had already finished its defensive preparations. All the citizens of the city had been evacuated to their homes and the Southern Xia army was spread out on the streets, ready to attack at any time. Clang clang. An ear-piercing alarm bell rang. Dong Fangqian took the king's sword and personally went to the command platform to supervise the battle. The enemy is attacking from the north. Their numbers are estimated to be around 30,000. Archery unit, prepare to meet them. True enough. The Eagle Burial Kingdom sent more reinforcements. This number was double what Dong Fangqian had imagined, but it wasn't to the point of being impossible to deal with. Under Dong Fangqian's command, 10,000 archers shot out. The arrows were like locusts as they flew out of Central State City. Each arrow was infused with powerful spirit energy, flying over 1,000 meters and reaching a killing range of around 500 meters. The Fang King was also an experienced commander, so he had expected Central State to resist. When he heard the sounds of bowstrings being released, the Fang King raised his hand and the entire army changed directions. They passed through the dense rain of arrows and charged at Central State City once again. The first wave of arrows was the strongest whether it was in terms of uniformity or strength, but the second wave was clearly weaker. The Vulture Knights charged down at full speed, charging through the rain of arrows. Passing through the roofs of Central State City, large amounts of Warhounds elites jumped off the vultures with scimitars, falling into Central State City like rain. The 30,000 Vulture Knights were a very strong battle strength. Without Southern Xia's aerial forces, it was enough to easily defeat 100,000 storm cavalry, not to mention there were 30,000–40,000 airborne soldiers. These soldiers that jumped down from the vultures were all very strong existences. They were experts picked out of 10 in the Warhound's army. Kill all humans. Kill, kill. Central State did not have any aerial forces, so the Vulture Knights could run amok. Just the archers could not stop them. The speed and power of the arrows could not pose a threat to the vultures. When the Warhound's elites moved through the streets like spiders, charging at the Southern Summer soldiers like hungry wolves. Dong Fanggan saw that the enemies were deep in and immediately gave the order, open fire. The Southern Xia army had been waiting for this order for a long time. Meng Yingying held the source energy submachine gun in her hands as she fired at a group of Warhound's soldiers coming out from the corner of the street. The dense rain of light bullets instantly killed several people. Go die, you damn Warhound's bastards. Nangong Yun took out a large fellow that was several times longer than a normal source energy submachine gun. The barrel had 3 openings and there were 8 large magazines connected to the body of the gun. Each large source energy magazine could shoot at least 30–40 bullets, which meant that this special gun had a high capacity of around 300 bullets. Hung, hung, hung. The special gun released a wild beast-like roar. The 3 barrels poured out large amounts of source energy bullets like a storm. When Nangong Yun swept across the sky, several Vulture Knights were instantly torn to pieces by the terrifying strength. Ha ha ha, this is so fucking satisfying. Boss, this weapon is practically made for me. Nangong Yun turned her body and the 3 barrels spat out flames. I'll let you taste Miracle Commerce's might. This was a heavy firearm specially made by Chu Tian. The materials used were leftover materials from the source energy cannons, so the gun had a high resistance. Even if it was fired at a high speed, the barrel would not easily explode. This heavy firearm's firepower was 3–4 times stronger than the submachine gun and was named the Storm Rifle. There was only one in the entire Miracle Commerce and it was used by Nangong Yun to have fun with it. Open fire. Sweep away the Warhound's vermin. Meng Yingying and Nangong Yun had only opened the curtains. The Southern Xia army had been hiding their strength to numb their opponents. When the Warhounds began their attack, Southern Xia did not need to hold anything back. Countless source energy guns began to fire at the same time. These source energy guns did not have as long range as the crossbows, but they had a terrifying destructive might in the short to medium range. Whether it was power or firing speed, they could not be compared to before. In the Imperial City battle, 2,000 submachine guns caused 20,000 Vulture cavalry to flee like rats, suffering heavy casualties. Now the Central State City Army had over 10,000 source energy submachine guns and several tens of thousands of source energy pistols. Although they did not have any air-to-air power, the scale and quantity could not be compared to the past. Dongfang Gan's formation was airtight and the Warhound's vulture cavalry were thrown into a pit of fire, instantly suffering an unbelievable number of casualties. The several Warhound's chiefs were stunned seeing this. What was going on? Since when did these humans have so many strange weapons in their hands? The Fang King's eyes began to heat up. As expected, this kind of weapon could be quickly produced and the material cost was very low, allowing them to produce this much in a short period of time. If the Warhounds delayed their attack by 3-5 months, perhaps the Eagle Burial Kingdom would personally send out their troops. They would need to pay a large price to capture southern Xia. This was great. If they could obtain this technology for the Eagle Burial Kingdom to use, it would be worth 10 Warhounds kingdoms. Go, full force attack. The 4 true Spirit Realm Warhounds chiefs made a move. The 4 true Spirit Realm experts each had the strength of 1,000 cavalry and the 4 of them attacking together did not lose to 10,000 cavalry. They instantly tore apart southern Xia's defenses and caused quite a bit of casualties to southern Xia. Humph, the spirit beasts are acting fierce, watch me deal with them. Vivian wanted to make a move. Wait a minute. Meng Yingying suddenly called out to her, now is not the time, your target is the other side's Fang King. Vivian said through gritted teeth, these fellows are too despicable, it's simply intolerable. Don't be anxious, we'll give them a taste of our strength. Nangong Yun put away the exaggerated storm rifles and took out the source energy cannons. Meng Yingying loaded the source energy cannons and the 2 of them aimed the cannons at the true spirit cultivators flying in the sky, open fire. Hong! Amidst the earth-shattering roar, that white light was even more dazzling than the sun as it instantly tore through the sky. It flew through the sky and hit a Warhound's chief, instantly vaporizing most of his body. That white shockwave did not decrease as it flew through the sky, destroying several vulture knights in a straight line. This was the might of the source energy cannons? Dongfang Gan was completely shocked. Chu Tian had described the source energy cannons before, saying that this thing was several hundred times stronger than normal source energy pistols. Dongfang Gan already knew that the source energy cannons were not weak, but he never thought it would be this strong. This was simply too shocking. It wasn't just Dongfang Gan who was shocked. When everyone felt the bone-chilling destructive might of the source energy cannons, they couldn't help feeling their souls tremble. This thing was just too strong and too terrifying. The Fang King's face turned green. Did he still underestimate the southern Xia humans? But since the humans had this kind of weapon, why didn't they use it in Imperial City? How many of these weapons did southern Xia have? If there were enough of them, it would be enough to equip the fleet. The Warhound's army on the 4 states lake would be in danger. The cost of the source energy cannons was very high. Miracle Commerce had used the National Treasury's resources, but they could barely make 4 of them. Of course they couldn't equip the entire army, but when 2 armies faced each other, just 1 or 2 of these weapons was enough to deter an army of 10,000. Continue firing. Nangong Yun and Meng Yingying continued firing. The terrifying explosions of the source energy cannons echoed through the sky. Because the enemy true spirit experts were already on guard, it wasn't easy to kill them anymore. However, it was enough to kill large amounts of the vulture knights and deal a destructive blow to their morale. The Fang King roared, don't panic, there are only 2 of these weapons. Whoever kills them for me, these 2 weapons will belong to them. The Warhound's warriors were filled with excitement. Who didn't want this kind of weapon that could instantly kill true spirit experts? There would be brave men with great rewards. The 3 Warhounds chiefs personally moved out, leading the vulture knights to attack Meng Yingying's group. Chapter 354. The Warhound's chiefs were attacking Miracle Commerce, so Dongfang Gan could not just sit back and do nothing. His source spirit turned into a large bow covered in blood runes, and wild spirit energy was poured into the bowstring, turning it into 3 arrows. They saw him gather energy and suddenly shoot them into the sky. The 3 arrows flew into the sky and turned into 3 giant spears. Like meteors falling from the sky, they flew at the 3 chiefs with an incomparably strong might. This power. It was without a doubt Dongfang Gan. Dongfang Gan was an old opponent of the Warhound's plains, so none of the Warhound's chiefs dared to look down on him. When the 3 of them saw Dongfang Gan's sudden attack, they immediately joined hands to create a giant energy barrier. 3 giant spear-like arrows slammed into the barrier, creating the sound of glass shattering. The Fang King locked onto Dongfang Gan's position and gave a cold snort. He pulled out the golden drum and stomped his feet, flying into the sky. Just like a giant bird spreading its wings, it was like a mountain pressing down. "My king, be careful." The 2 personal guards did not have time to release their source spirits. The purple gold thunder god's drum released 2 bolts of lightning that struck their bodies. Like 2 pieces of paper being torn apart, the 2 personal guards were turned to ashes. The Fang King did not stop at all. That golden drum already contained a terrifying thunder energy, and it released an even more resplendent glow. When it flew at Dongfang Gan, tens of thousands of bolts of lightning shot out in all directions, just like a giant spider web. Although Dongfang Gan had never fought with the Fang King before, from the pressure he felt, this person's cultivation was not below his own and even surpassed him by quite a bit. That long bow turned into a set of armor, and Dongfang Gan took out a treasure sword filled with a majestic aura. It was the Southern Summer King's sword. This sword was not just the symbol of the Southern Summer King, it was also a powerful divine weapon. Dongfang Gan released his full strength to block the Fang King's shocking attack. Dang! When the golden drum hit the king's sword, the ground under the 2 sovereign kings' feet caved in by half a foot, and a shallow pit appeared in a radius of 30 meters. The surrounding buildings were shattered, and the large and small stones, along with the people, were moved dozens of meters away by the irresistible force. There seemed to be a strong energy field surrounding the 2 of them. This force field was unimaginably strong. Large amounts of surging spirit energy collided and even created flames and thunder. Almost everything that was enveloped in this force field was crushed by the tyrannical spirit energy storm. The Fang King's attack was incomparably wild, and Dongfang Gan's momentum was much weaker, but Dongfang Gan's armament source spirit had already turned into a defensive state, so it was enough to absorb most of the damage. This attack seemed to be evenly matched. However, both sides did not move their weapons away. Instead, they continued to wrestle. Ha ha ha. The Southern Summer East country is only a so-so. The Fang King used some kind of secret technique, causing all the tendons in his body to bulge out, and the power he erupted with became stronger and stronger. Dongfang Gan's feet continued to sink deeper and deeper, increasing the size of the crater. Thunder God. Give me strength. A bolt of heavenly lightning fell from the sky and landed on the golden drum, increasing the might of this weapon by over half. Dongfang Gan found it hard to resist this sudden increase in strength. Large amounts of lightning continued to fall on Dongfang Gan's body, and the armor formed from the armament source spirit was like it was being wildly pounded by a boxer, as large amounts of holes appeared on it. Of course, Dongfang Gan was unwilling to lose, so he also began to resist. The runes on the surface of the king's sword were all undone, and a wave of energy sealed within the king's sword burst out, instantly creating a shocking amount of extremely sharp sword chi. The Fang King did not have any defenses, and a large amount of bloody mist instantly erupted from his body. There were dozens of wounds on his body. What difference is there between these wounds and being cut by a small knife? The Fang King's right hand held the golden drum, and his left hand condensed a fierce energy, slamming it at Dongfang Gan's chest. Dongfang Gan also raised his fist at the same time and also sent it at the Fang King. The moment the 2 fists collided. This time, the entire force field was broken. When the terrifying energy leaked out, the surrounding ruins were flattened in a single breath. Dongfang Gan's source spirit armor shattered, and he was sent flying several hundred meters like a cannonball. Like a meteor, he created a large hole in the ground and his organs were all injured. The Fang King's strength was very deep, even Dong Fang Gan was weaker than him by quite a bit. Against a person like the Fang King, it was hard for Southern Xia's experts to defeat him alone. They could only use a suicide squad to consume his spirit energy and kill him when his strength was weak. Kill the Southern Summer King. Kill the Southern Summer King. The Warhound's army was filled with excitement when they saw the Fang King's bravery. Southern Xia's firepower was too strong, so it would be very hard to take down Southern Xia. However, if the Fang King could kill the Southern Summer King, Dong Fang Gan, Central State would fall into chaos and they would have a chance at that time. Even if they failed to take down the city, there would still be chaos and it would be much easier for the army to attack. Of course the Fang King would not miss this good chance. The golden drum released a dazzling bolt of lightning that stabbed at the retreating Dong Fang Gan. However, the space in front of him twisted at this time and a petite figure came out. Who is it? This person's appearance was too sudden, and the Fang King did not have time to defend. A beautiful white jade-like hand grabbed the Fang King's golden drum that was flickering with thunder and lightning. That surging spirit energy was released, instantly causing the Fang King to feel his body tremble as he retreated several meters. That figure flashed and appeared behind him again. A sparkling and translucent dagger slashed through the air, cutting a hole in the air like a piece of cloth. This is bad. The Fang King stepped into it and was instantly surrounded by the spatial energy. He did not have time to escape, and when he came back to his senses, he was already over 100 miles away, standing in the air above a forest. Damn! What was going on here? Southern Xia still had hidden experts. But even if Southern Xia had hidden experts, it didn't make sense for them to be this strong. The Fang King had never seen a person that could force him back with pure spirit energy. Even in the Eagle Burial Kingdom, there weren't many experts that could do this. Not to mention that this person's spirit energy attribute was very special, it was actually the rarely seen spatial attribute. The Fang King was caught off guard, so he was taken away from Central State. Who are you? When the Fang King saw the unknown expert appear, he couldn't help but be stunned. She was a short girl around 1.4 meters tall, barefooted, and had a pair of crystal-clear ankles that were as spotless as jade. She wore a crown of flowers on her head, and her face was young and tender. This was clearly a young elf. Why are the elves getting involved in this mess? The Fang King could not understand this no matter how much he thought about it. The southern summer country did not have any background, there was no doubt about this, otherwise the Eagle Burial Kingdom would know about it. The elves would not help a human country for no reason, this was not the style of the elves since ancient times. Vivian already couldn't hold it in. Before Chu Tian left, he had told her that she couldn't reveal her strength and identity in front of too many people, otherwise the entire southern Xia would know that there was a young elf helping them beat back the spirit beasts. The elven forest would immediately know about this and it would be bad for miracle commerce. The best method was to take advantage of the Fang King and the Southern Summer King's fight and suddenly make a move. Before anyone could react or even see what was happening, Vivian would send the Fang King out of the battlefield. This way, the warhounds would lose their leader and Vivian would be able to fight as she pleased. Do elves need a reason to fight spirit beasts? Vivian had fought quite a few spirit beast experts in the forest. This Warhound's Kingdom's Fang King was a bit troublesome, but he was not Vivian's match with his strength. Seeking death. The Fang King instantly stabbed out with the drum. Spatial crack. Vivian was prepared to use the method she used on Dong Fang Gan to deal with the Fang King. First she would tear open a spatial crack to block the Fang King's attack and then she would create another spatial crack on the Fang King's body. As long as the Fang King's weapon touched the spatial crack, the one who would be pierced by the spatial crack would be himself. The Fang King could feel the spatial energy fluctuations and his weapon stopped in front of the spatial crack. However, the golden drum released lightning that went around the spatial crack to shoot at Vivian. This spirit beast really did have some skills. Vivian had fought quite a few strong characters in the Forest of Chaos, but there were very few opponents that could see through Vivian's spatial manipulation. For the Fang King to be able to do this, it really wasn't simple. Vivian's source spirit was the spatial dagger, and her main ability was to create spatial cracks in space. All of her attacks, defenses, and movements were based on this foundation. Vivian could not only teleport through space, she could also cut through space and do things normal people couldn't do. Therefore, no secret realm or cage could trap her. Other than that, Vivian also had an extraordinary attack because she could cut through space, so she could cut through anything on a spatial level. Cut! Vivian's right arm swung out. Space was torn apart by an invisible power, and it was like a large mouth swallowing the lightning. The Fang King's expression slightly changed. With your strength, why are you working for the southern summer insects? Could it be that you're interested in miracle commerce and Chu Tian's knowledge? If it's like this, we can share it and mind our own business. The Fang King was a bit scared. This little elf's cultivation was a bit higher than his, and she had the innate spatial energy that was 1 in 100 million on the continent. Even if the Fang King was strong and experienced, it would be hard for him to kill the other side. Vivian curled her lips in disdain. I don't want to work with spirit beasts. If you don't die today, then I will live, so what's the point of saying so much? The Fang King was also enraged. This elf simply didn't know what was good for her. The Fang King raised the golden drum and summoned thousands of bolts of lightning. It was like a dense rain that wildly poured out in all directions. This elf's innate talent was not normal, but she had to cut through space to control it. The Fang King filled the surrounding space with lightning, and it was hard to tell where the Fang King was with the naked eye. Vivian wanted to cut through space to teleport over, but when the spatial crack opened beside the Fang King, large amounts of lightning wildly poured into it, making it impossible for Vivian to teleport. Was he filling his body with energy to stop Vivian's movements? No, this was just the beginning. Thunder God's body. The lightning in the surroundings suddenly gathered together and attached to the Fang King's divine sense, turning him into a giant more than 6 meters tall. This giant had a beast face and a human body, with a pair of giant wings. His body was made of lightning energy, and the Fang King's aura instantly increased by several times. This was a thorny problem. Everyone knew that the spatial attribute was one of the strongest attributes, but they didn't know that the stronger the power, the more restrictions there were. When Vivian controlled space, she was mainly affected by 2 factors. The first was the distance. The further the space, the lower the accuracy. For example, if Vivian wanted to use space to cut through a person 10 meters away, she could easily do it. But it would be a bit difficult to make it 100 meters away, and it would be very difficult to make it 1,000 meters away. This was because controlling space depended on one's divine sense. The further the distance, the weaker the divine sense, the more inaccurate the location. The second was the stability of space. The stability of space also affected the accuracy. This space was stable most of the time, but when the space was filled with powerful energy, the space would become unstable due to the energy fluctuations. If Vivian's strength was not enough to overcome the interference of the energy, it would be very hard for her attacks to hit the other side. The Fang King continued to release high-intensity energy into the surrounding space to affect the stability of space and obstruct Vivian's control of space. He also used the energy waves to interfere with divine sense, making it hard for Vivian to locate him. Damn, she never thought that this fellow would know so much. Could it be that he had dealt with a spatial source spirit before? Vivian put away her contempt. This time she was facing an experienced soldier. If she wasn't careful, it would be hard to say who would win. Although Vivian could easily escape with her innate spatial energy, she had failed the first important task Chu Tian had given her. How could she have the face to go back? Chapter 355. Then she could only try the cultivation technique Chu Tian taught her. Vivian had innate spatial energy, but because she hadn't found a suitable cultivation technique, she could only rely on her source spirit's ability to cut through space to fight, so her fighting style was quite simple. As for spatial rending, teleportation, and spatial cutting, these two abilities were built on the foundation of cutting through space. Now that the Fang King had sealed off the surrounding space with lightning, Vivian couldn't teleport over. She had also used her energy to create spatial fluctuations, and Vivian's spatial cutting couldn't hit the Fang King, so there was nothing she could do. After all, Vivian's defenses were weak and she couldn't block this kind of powerful energy. If the Fang King wanted to run now, Vivian couldn't do anything. But it seemed like the Fang King didn't plan on running, as he raised a giant lightning spike to attack Vivian. The Fang King was clear that this elf's innate spatial energy could tear through space to teleport, so even if he ran, he would be caught. Not to mention, as the commander of the army, how could the Fang King abandon the army and run? This elf's defenses were very weak, and other than spatial techniques, she had no other abilities. As long as he could get close, he should be able to kill her in a single strike, even if the other side's cultivation was higher than his. How could Vivian not know what the other side was thinking? Humph, this dirty spirit beast wants to kill me. Vivian had only cultivated the void escaping cultivation technique for a few days, but she had already grasped a few tricks. This was not related to Vivian's innate talent. After all, she was a true spirit realm expert and she hadn't cultivated a spatial cultivation technique in many years. Now that she had a cultivation technique that matched her source spirit, naturally it complemented her source spirit. When the Fang King got close to Vivian, he spread out lightning, covering Vivian's surroundings. The lightning released intense energy in a short period of time, quickly interfering with the surrounding space and restricting Vivian's teleportation ability. Die! A lightning bolt condensed into a sharp thorn and suddenly stabbed into Vivian's body. At this time, Vivian's body trembled, and then the lightning bolt directly pierced through Vivian's chest, the dazzling energy penetrating through her back. Did she die? The Fang King revealed a look of joy. With this kind of powerful energy attack, it would be hard for her not to die. But at this time, the Fang King was surprised to find that Vivian's body wasn't injured at all by the lightning. The attack seemed to have hit air and not Vivian's body. Vivian was getting closer and closer to the Fang King. Not good. The Fang King felt a strong sense of danger. Vivian revealed a sly smile. This distance should be enough. She raised her white, jade-like palm and condensed a spatial blade that slashed across the Fang King's body. Spatial laceration. Cutting objects from the spatial level. Regardless of how sturdy an object was, it could be split apart no matter how hard it was. Poochie. Blood splashed out. Everything happened in an instant. The Fang King had been cut in half at the waist. The Warhound's Kingdom's Fang King didn't even know what had happened, but he had been mysteriously killed like this. It was so useful. Was this the effect of void evasion? Escaping into the void, it really lived up to its name. When Vivian used the void evasion technique, her entire body was covered in spatial energy. Even if her opponent could still see her, her body was actually separated by a layer of spatial energy, and she was no longer within the normal spatial structure. This state could make her immune to any attack. Whether it was ice, fire, wind, or lightning, they would be separated from Vivian's body by the spatial layer, so they couldn't touch Vivian and couldn't harm her at all. She could use the special ability of her spatial dagger to attack through space. The essence of the void evasion was a mysterious spatial movement technique. Once Vivian mastered this cultivation technique and combined with the attack power of her source spirit, spatial dagger, others couldn't hit her, but she could hit others. Her strength would reach a terrifying level and those geniuses of the same level could only be instantly killed. The void evasion was not completely invincible. She wouldn't receive normal injuries, but attacks on her mind, soul, space, and time were still effective. Other than that, the void evasion state was like a dividing line. If one's strength wasn't strong enough, even if there were millions of attacks, Vivian wouldn't be injured at all and she wouldn't consume too much energy. But if one attack was strong enough and could break through the spatial barrier, it would be able to break Vivian's cultivation technique. Vivian had just cultivated the void evasion and her cultivation technique wasn't strong enough. Even if she received an attack of similar strength, her cultivation technique would still be broken. But it was a pity that the Fang King's cultivation was weaker than Vivian's, so he couldn't break this spatial cultivation technique. As Vivian's strength increased in the future, if her cultivation technique reached the large success realm, she would be strong to the point where normal attacks would not be able to threaten her in the same realm. Whether the other side was 3 or 5 layers higher than her, as long as they were in the same realm, normal attacks would be ineffective. This was the terrifying aspect of a spatial cultivation technique. Done. Vivian sent the Fang King's corpse back to Central State. The Fang King suddenly disappeared from the battlefield and reappeared after around half a minute. In the end, he had turned into a corpse that had been cut in half. The Warhound's army's morale had completely collapsed. The Warhound's planes could only form the Warhound's kingdom with the Fang King. Once the Warhound's kingdom lost the supreme leader of the Fang King, they would return to being a group of headless Warhound's clans. Now the Fang King was dead. Wouldn't the Warhound's planes return to the past? Retreat, retreat. The Warhound's chief felt that there was no need to fight. Instead of wasting troops in Central State City, it was better to expand their territory on the plains. The Fang King had been killed, the Warhound's kingdom had collapsed, and the tribal alliance had been broken. Was it that easy? Spatial rope. When the Warhound's chief stepped out, the surrounding space twisted like an invisible rope trying to trap him. This was also a secret technique of the void evasion. This is bad. The Warhound's chief tried to break free, but it was already too late. Vivian instantly appeared by the Warhound's chief's side and instantly used a spatial cut to cut his body in half. She didn't even stop for half a second as she disappeared to the side once again. Too fast. The other 2 Warhound's chiefs already realized that there was a Southern Xia expert that could control space. How could the 2 of them be careless? The 2 of them released their spirit energy, interfering with the spatial fluctuations around them. Moreover, they quickly moved in different directions to avoid being caught by the spatial bindings, blocking a spatial expert's sneak attack. Vivian's teeth itched in hatred. These fellows were truly sly. If it wasn't for Vivian not being seen by everyone, she would have already chased after the 2 of them. But there was no other way. They were already prepared and it was hard for Vivian to make a single move, so she could only let the 2 of them leave. The Central State battle was a great victory. The enemy army had been completely wiped out. From the famous Fang King to the 2 Warhound's chiefs, they had all died here. The Southern Summer Country had defended the 6 southern counties and had even killed the Fang King. With this kind of glorious result, the Southern Summer citizens were filled with pride and satisfaction. At this time, an incomparably exciting piece of news came from the 4 states lake. The Warhound's army of around 600,000 had been completely wiped out. Completely wiped out. It was actually completely wiped out. When the Southern Xia people heard this news, they almost suspected that there was a problem with their ears. Chu Tian had brought 200,000 people out and had actually wiped out 600,000 enemies. This was simply a miraculous result. Moreover, after this 4 states lake battle, over half of the Warhound's plains main force had been wiped out, so they did not have the ability to invade the south anymore. The Southern Summer Country had lost several 100,000 elite soldiers. The Warhounds had also lost several 100,000 elites. The Warhounds had taken 1 region and 2 states, but the Southern Summer Country had killed the Warhound's king. This seemed like 2 defeats and 2 defeats, but the Warhounds were not a threat at all. Southern Xia could recover their lost territory at any time. But he was afraid of the Eagle Burial Kingdom behind the Warhounds, so before the time was ripe, Dongfang Gan did not dare take back the imperial region. He wanted to avoid provoking the Eagle Burial Kingdom and causing them to crazily retaliate at all costs. The biggest hidden danger now was the Eagle Burial Kingdom. Southern Xia had destroyed the Warhounds' main force in one fell swoop and killed the Eagle Burial Kingdom's king, causing the Warhounds that had the potential to become a large kingdom to quickly decline. This was an anger the Eagle Burial Kingdom could not swallow. As an incomparably strong warring kingdom, their military was very strong. If they wanted to destroy the southern summer country, the southern summer country would have to face an invasion 10 times stronger than the war hounds. How could they resist this? The Eagle Burial Kingdom was an ambitious warring kingdom that was expanding their territory on all sides, so they would not muster a large force for a small southern Xia. Not to mention the fact that the southern summer country defeated the Warhound's kingdom in a very strange way. If Dongfang Gan misled them and made them suspect that there was a power from the Forest of Chaos supporting the southern summer country, the Eagle Burial Kingdom would have to be cautious. Without investigating everything clearly, they wouldn't dare provoke an unknown enemy. Southern Xia still had time to prepare, but it was hard to estimate how long it would take. In short, Southern Xia's crisis was far from over. For this matter, Dongfang Gan had gathered everyone to discuss how to strengthen Southern Summer's defenses in a short amount of time, preparing to defend against the Eagle Burial Kingdom's invasion. The great scholar Gu Qianqiu said, "The current Southern Xia is small, poor in resources, and thin in spiritual energy. If we defend this place, even if we have miracle commerce as weapons, it will be hard to defend against the Eagle Burial Kingdom. Moreover, paper can't wrap fire. Southern Xia using source energy weapons on such a large scale, I estimate that it will be spread to other countries in a month or two. At that time, not only the Eagle Burial Kingdom, but the other kingdoms will also be interested." This was one of the things the Southern Summer King was most worried about. The source energy weapons were Southern Xia's confidence in resisting the Eagle Burial Kingdom, but it could also bring a terrifying disaster to Southern Xia. After all, the source energy weapons were just too attractive. No matter which country, as long as they had this weapon, they could increase their country's strength by 10 times. Not to mention the kingdoms, even the empires would be interested. At that time, Southern Summer would not only be facing the Eagle Burial Kingdom, they would also be facing the threat of other strong countries on the continent. With Southern Summer's current weak national strength, how could they protect miracle commerce? Trees will die when they move, people will live when they are poor. If we want to resist the threat of other powers, we can't just remain stagnant. Gu Qianqiu expressed his opinion, "I think we should expand outwards." The great scholar's words are reasonable. Dongfang Gan gave a slight nod, "We can't advance to the north and there are no rich lands to the east or west, only the south can be taken a risk. Only according to this king's knowledge, the southern forests are very rich, but there are many unimaginable powers. The best of them are not inferior to warring kingdoms. Southern Xia is too weak, so if we recklessly enter, we will be swallowed without even bones remaining. What does everyone think we should do?" A single Eagle Burial Kingdom could force Southern Xia into its current state. The top powers in the Forest of Chaos were not inferior to warring kingdoms. The entire Forest of Chaos had the potential and resources to form a large empire. With such a rich and fertile land, even if Southern Xia could absorb a bit of resources, it would be enough to increase Southern Xia's national strength. This was indeed a good way to quickly increase Southern Xia's strength. Only, could Southern Xia really gain a foothold in this kind of place? Southern Xia might not be able to, but miracle commerce can. Meng Qinggu stood up and said, "With miracle commerce, it will be much easier to enter the Forest of Chaos." This was true. Southern Summer was still a country no matter how weak they were. If they used their country's identity to enter, they would be labeled as invaders by the locals and they would be suppressed hard to resist at that time. Miracle commerce was different. The Forest of Chaos was very chaotic, but because of the chaos, there were many business opportunities. There were many merchants on the continent that were willing to take the risk and the locals did not reject foreign merchants that much. Miracle Commerce's products were very competitive in the Forest of Chaos. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.